Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto speedster Marvel Universe. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Assassin of War and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Greetings, I am the being known as Uadu the Watcher. It is my task to note all events of significance in this part of the cosmos. Only to note them, never to interfere. This task not only brings me great joy, but great sorrow. Here I stand by watching as a unique young man is taken from his reality and thrust into another by those who do not practice non-interference. They know not the fire they handle, they simply take him because he was outside of their process of creation and he is different to them. Their purpose is simple, they are instruments of the planting creation teaming of the universe, while their antithesis devour all they create. It truly is a never-ending cycle created by the being known as the fulcrum. One group creates life, one watches and records it, the last devours, sending them back into oblivion. It is the basic law of nature that governs the cosmos. But I digress, the young man I have been watching for the past few days now is beginning to stir from his slumber. Ready to begin his tale. Organic life is nothing but a genetic mutation, an experiment. Your lives are measured in years and decades. You wither and die. We are eternal, the pinnacle of evolution and existence. My kind transcends your very understanding. We are each a nation, independent, free of all weakness. You cannot grasp the nature of our existence. We have no beginning. We have no end. We are infinite. Millions of years after your civilization has been eradicated and forgotten, we will endure. There is a realm of existence so far beyond your own you cannot even imagine it. We are beyond your comprehension. In the end what you call us is irrelevant, we simply are. Before us, you are nothing. Your extinction is inevitable. We are the end of everything. You exist because we allow it and you will end because we demand it. We are the young man awoke with a start, sweating profusely and gasping for breath. He bolted upright from his makeshift bed, he began calming himself down, he started to gather his wits about him. The young man's name is Namikaze Naruto, Nidame Yuzukage of Yuzushi. This had been one of numerous dreams that had assaulted his mind while asleep. The speech or declaration, it was being embedded into his psyche by what sounded like multiple voices, one speaking over another. He could never grasp their name before the dream ended and he guessed it didn't really matter at this point. This was something that had been on his mind, but he was no closer to finding anything out. Even if he knew their name, what could he do about it right now? And should he find them, then what? To bring him unawares to a foreign land meant they were very powerful, he would need to tread carefully or have something very powerful aiding him. And then if he does beat them, how does he get back home? Will he even be able to get back home? There were just too many questions right now and not enough answers. He reached into his subconsciousness to talk to Kurama, the Biju sealed into him at birth and once more during the war, in a way to help his free endmate, the mighty fox had a clue what was going on. The blonde Namikaze frowned, no matter how far he went, he couldn't locate the fox. He found a faint sense of something similar but at the same time different from Kurama. Whatever it was, it had dug itself deep into the farthest reaches of his mind and would be a while before it awakened. No matter what he did to try and stir whatever was back there, it did not budge. It had come to the point he had stopped after a few hours every day, he had other priorities right now, like getting a roof over his head. He was currently homeless, had no money, nor any food. From sleeping on rooftops to trying to find something to eat in an alley, never had he experienced this end of the spectrum. It made him realize just how well off he truly was back home, a roof over his head, food on the table, warmth in the company of family and friends, money was never an issue either. Since this was a foreign land to him, he made sure to be discreet when looking for food or anything he would need to survive. He did not know the form of government here and he did not wish to kill someone because of a mistake he may have made. However, just because he did not know the form of government or rules here does not mean he has not gathered some information. Using his eyes, he had made a startling discovery, the natives of the land he was currently in had very little if any chakra in their systems. Never would he have believed it had he not seen it. Just how did the people here live with such small pools of chakra? Realization had hit him when he made this discovery, he truly was away from his home. The blood from his mother's clan refused to believe in such a farce, but the blood from his father knew it was all real. Sometimes he hated having such contradicting views on things due to his reckless Uzumaki blood in his veins and the rational thinking from his Uchiha blood. And that doesn't even add in the instincts from the Kagaya clan. Sure he was gifted with prodigious talent, but sometimes those same genetics could bite you in the ass. There had also been another problem, but one he foresaw, there was a language barrier. He had no clue what was being said, it all sounded like gibberish coming in at different decibels, some were low others were high. He had even resorted to using his Sharingan, easily reading the moving lips of a man or a woman. The only problem was he didn't know what the words meant. He had contemplated pushing his eyes to their next stage to see if they would have a better time of it. Fortunately, the decision had been taken out of his hands as he spotted movement a few yards away from his position. It was a group of 4 men, one clearly older than the others, while the remaining 3 appeared middle-aged. What made them stand out from allies was the 3 surrounding the old man. It was a mugging, or a murder in the works. Whatever these 3 men wanted, they wanted it badly enough to do it in front of many witnesses. Or perhaps they planned to kill everyone who saw them. Chances were slim at that, the citizens watching could easily overpower them. So then why? He shrugged his shoulders, it wasn't any of his business. He went back to thinking of how to get a roof over his head. Help. Hearing the plea for help did little to dissuade him, and he continued to ignore it. Please help me. They win if I die here. Naruto turned his attention back to the group, clearly he wasn't the only person wishing to keep his hands out of this. The area once full of people had all but vanished, leaving only himself and the 4 other men. Having no clue what the man was spouting, he was getting annoyed, and if him helping got rid of his shouting, then he could get back to the task at hand. So he got up, dusted himself off and begun to judge just how far the distance was from his building to the next and so on. He could make the jumps. Getting a running start, he leapt off the ledge of his building, clearing the gap that led downwards to certain doom, and landed on the other side. 2 more buildings to go. He did the same thing to the following 2, he was just above the group who was disturbing his peace. Not wanting to use what shuriken and kunai he had left, he took out his ninja wire instead and began to tie it off, creating a noose. Slipping on his fox mask that was given to him by Samui, he applied chakra to his feet and began a slow walk downwards towards the man furthest in the back. None of them hurt him, nor did any aside from the old man who was being threatened, see what he did to the straggler. Quietly, like he was out fishing, cast a noose around the neck of the first man, slowly began to tighten so it rested firmly, and then he pulled. That was the good thing about ninja wire, especially the one he had, it was made to be subtle and if used correctly could prove fatal. The wire had sliced clean through skin, tissue, muscle, and everything else that was needed to keep a person alive. Damari, a genin of Sunagakure, had given this type of wire to him. It was what she personally used herself to carry out her own missions. He had been very grateful for it, especially now. It was special in that it was designed specifically for use with wind chakra, making it even sharper than normal. Plus, it could be used to control things, kind of like how the puppeteers of that country do. Quickly reacting, he manipulated the wire to wrap around the flying head while he slid down to catch the body from hitting the ground. It had taken him months to perfect the technique of applying just the right amount of force when using the wires as he did just now, as the head was still intact. He thanked Shizuka for that training that day, she was more proficient at smaller weapons than he was. Placing the body and head down softly next to one another, he moved in to take out the remaining 2, he did not however expect one of them to ask the dead one a question. Hey, how should we make this old man talk? The man spoke in a much heavier tone, almost angry, compared to the others he had seen. It also had a distinct accent. Who are you? Naruto was of a mind to just break the finger that was being pointed at him, and it was by this point the other one turned around as well. Seeing as neither were going to outright action, he took these few spare seconds to size them up. He wasn't impressed, and it wasn't from lack of chakra. The duo tried to pass off what they were wearing as matching uniforms, but he could tell they were nothing but tatters. It was mismatched, if they hoped to make a statement then they needed to do better, the only thing on their persons that was similar was a strange symbol they had everywhere on their clothes. It was strange to be sure, perhaps it was a clan symbol. Looking at it from one angle gave you a cross, another it would look like an X if the legs were unfurled. The actual symbol was black in color, with a white circle background and another background in red covering the whole thing. He glanced behind the duo, getting a better look at the victim. This one was more refined, a black suit with a white shirt and some shiny shoes, along with a walking stick. The man was old, very old, pudgy and if his nose was correct, he smelled of smoke. His eyes spotted what just had to be the largest cigarette he had ever seen on the ground. I asked you who you are. Naruto returned his attention back to the 2 and could read them like an open book, both were tensing their muscles, ready to attack at the slightest provocation. Before he tried to do anything, he spotted the old man moving his stick above his head, ready to bash in some heads. He mentally shrugged, he could distract the 2 idiots while the old man took them out. I am not the one you have to worry about. The 2 men looked at him confused, neither knowing what he said. The old man paused a bit and looked directly at him, a look of recognition and fear in his eyes. Naruto was confused by this look, just why was the man afraid of him for? They had never met. The blonde eyes spotted one of the man's hands reaching into his coat and they registered a piece of metal being drawn. His own muscles tensed, ready to kill him quickly but stopped. Just what was he looking at? It was metal alright, but not like his shuriken or kunais. This thing had an elongated tip with a small circular hole at the tip. Towards the back stood its grip and a small area to fit your finger in. Whatever it was enough to panic the old man in the back into taking out this man first. He dropped his stick down. Bam. Boom. It was simultaneous. The stick had come crashing down atop a head while a small projectile was fired off at him in a loud boom. It all happened in slow motion. He watched as the body dropped to the ground with a thud and the other man slowly beginning to turn around and kill the old man. While that was happening, he watched a small projectile coming directly towards him. His eyes read its intended projection and it was going straight towards his arm. Seeing no other choice, he moved his body as fast as he could and felt the projectile go in and out of his arm. Arg. Whatever that thing was, it moved faster than what his body would allow him to move. His eyes clearly saw it, so that meant his body couldn't avoid it. He would need to train his body once more. He landed on the ground with a thud, gripping his arm. The pain was unlike anything he had ever felt before. How had something so small done so much damage? It burned like crazy, but he was lucky it had went through. He was thankful he had learned a few healing techniques from Karen all those years ago. Granted he would never be as proficient as her at Tsunade, but he didn't have to be. All that mattered was the right now. Chmsen Jutsu mystical palm technique. His eyes allowed him the control needed to apply this technique and before he knew it, the bleeding wound became scarred skin which would heal over time. Looking up, he saw the other enemy going for the old man and knew he wouldn't last. The surprise attack had been good, but only towards one enemy. He gritted his teeth and pushed himself up with his arms. The wound was tender and vanished via body flicker. Reappearing in front of the two men shocked them both paralyzed and he struck. Sending a punch towards the man's gut, he doubled him over and then grabbed the side of his head and drove it towards his rising knee. The man was a bloody muttering mess once he fell to the ground unconscious. Great Scott. That was bloody amazing my boy. Naruto's head snapped towards the old man. You can speak my language. The old man scoffed, please son, in order to better understand your enemy, you must immerse yourself not only in their language but their culture. You need to know how they think. Naruto found himself nodding, it was what he would do. Find out all you could on a target and then when a plan was conceived you strike. You still did not answer my question. The old man looked at him confused, are you not from Imperial Japan? I was positive you were since I heard you speak the dialect earlier he muttered the last part. Oh, that must have been the look he noticed earlier, he recognized him speaking the so-called Japanese. What is this Imperial Japan? Asked Naruto confused. Now the old man looked at him like he was stupid, which pissed him off. What is Japan? Just where have you been the last 2 years? Not around here obviously. He replied succinctly. Smartus. Naruto smirked at that one, even though it was hidden behind his mask. Before they continued speaking any further, the man told him they should leave the scene. Naruto agreed, but decided to get rid of the bodies. He molded his chakra, calling it forth from the bowels of his stomach, towards his throat and out of his mouth. Pain. Okay embers. He felt no threat from the man who was gaping at him in awe. If need be, he could just kill the man and dispose of the body, much the same way he was doing now. Never have I seen such an ability in all my life. The blonde Sharingan user stayed quiet, wanting to hear what the man thought. You have obviously shown me this ability for a reason, an olive branch of friendship or partnership perhaps with a subtle threat of death, should I speak of it? Naruto was impressed with the man's deduction skills, he gave him a stiff nod. He needed to start somewhere in this place and perhaps helping this man would get him started. You have my word and to show you the same kindness, I will give you my name, something I have closely began to guard in the last few months. Replied the old man in his native tongue. Your name? Yes, recently I have become a high-profile target as you can see. He pointed to the burning bodies of flesh. Naruto nodded. I can give you friendship, that is easy to give. We don't need trust to be friends. But a partnership? You know nothing about me, would you really trust someone who can do what I do and fully trust me? Questioned the fox mask wearing blonde. Yes. Replied the old man without hesitation. You are the future my boy, I can clearly see that. With you and me, we can protect this country and her people, prepare her for what's to come. But you're right, I do not know anything about you. I promised you my name as a show of trust, let me start the introductions. Naruto had listened to the mini speech the man gave him and he could appreciate the honesty and straightforwardness the old man showed. It was a nice change of pace from having to deal with those who use deception on a daily basis. Plus, it also helped the man wanted to protect country and people, something he could relate to. The old man stuck out his hand, Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill. He introduced himself as. For obvious reasons, the blonde knew nothing of this man, but his eyes told him he was speaking truthfully. None of the signs of lying showed when he was giving his name. He looked at the outstretched hand and offered his own, Namikaze Naruto. Churchill raised an eyebrow at the backwards greeting but shrugged, he chalked it up to it being something Japanese. 2 months had come and gone in the blink of an eye since the initial meeting between both Naruto and Winston, each man finding the other's name odd. It was during this time that Naruto learned that his new friend associate was very wealthy, and if the big estate did not convey that message, the various amounts of tutors did. Naruto already knew many of the things they were trying to teach him, such as mathematics. He already knew that due to him learning Kenjutsu, which required the use of complex mathematical equations to estimate the size of what you were trying to seal and for how long. What he really learned over the months was different languages. He learned English, German, Italian, Russian, and many others. When he asked why, Winston simply told him it would allow him to blend in a bit better in their country and so he could understand others when he was off on missions. Speaking of missions, he had accomplished a few for the man and he admitted that learning the languages did help. Most missions were recon assignments meant for gathering information on certain people and places. When he went out on these assignments he used a codename he had chosen at the behest of Winston. He went by KAGEBMSHI Black Shadow and he was glad he did. Among the things he learned was the use of technology these days and it was very powerful, much more so that in his home. How people could talk over oceans via radio waves astounded him. Sure, they had handheld radios back home, but nothing on the scale of what they had here. The people here did not develop physically as his people had, they developed technologically. But then came the similarities both his people and the ones here shared, conflict. No matter where he went, there was always fighting. The only real difference he could make out was just the scale. His geography teacher showed him maps of these countries, and they were 4 times the size of the elemental nations. So just in sheer size of scale they had them beat, but that only meant more to conquer, which only meant more death. And at the epicenter of this all was the country of Germany, them and the Nazis. Well, they were the core of the problems, but everything had started when Japan had taken control of China in 1937. Then not only a year later and they invaded the Soviet Union along with Mongolia in 1938. They were still fighting on that front, and granted it wasn't all of the Japanese fault, there were other events that eventually led the world to where it currently stood. Some of the people in the house had been nervous or downright frightened of him when they learned he was Japanese. The mask nor his gear helped with that. He was reluctant to do so, but he removed his mask to place the staff and guards at ease, plus nobody would teach or feed him if he still had his mask on, so to him it was a fair trade. Nobody aside from Churchill knew his name anyways. Many of the women were swooning over his appearance, his sun-kissed blonde hair along with his ocean blue eyes. To them, he looked more Caucasian than Asian, so they figured that he must be a mix of both, Euro-Asian. He honestly didn't care for either. He shook his head at the thoughts plaguing his mind. Right now he was out on his daily patrol of the city, they couldn't have small groups try to get a foothold in their country. He was to take care of any people he found suspicious as he deemed fit, and lo and behold, he found some. They stuck out like a sore thumb, each of them were wearing cloaks, obviously trying to conceal their identities from any prying eyes. The group ducked into an alleyway. He followed after them, it was time to get to work. None of them had noticed his presence yet, although maybe one had if them sniffing the air was anything to go by, but then again they were in an alley. All they had to do was look up and they would find him. "Is it safe to talk now?" asked one of the smaller figures. His ears picked up a strange accent, it was English alright, just another variant it seemed. "I'm not sure, let's ask our friends from this time. What do you think, Raven, Irene, Logan?" spoke another small figure. Naruto's eyebrows furrowed, what did that person mean by time? And was she really just dumb enough to drop their real names? "Don't use our real names," bit out another figure, chiding the other one. Sorry, I was just asking. Look, for this mission use our codenames, or at least the 2 of ours, don't know if he has one." The figure jerked their thumb to perhaps the shortest of the bunch. "Right, so what should we do, Mystique, Destiny? If you're positive this event took place now and it changed the future, then you need to be prepared for the consequences of messing with time," replied Mystique. Naruto just sat back taking in everything that was being said. "Shadowcat, Marvel Girl, can you tell us the details once more so we can discern if we are even in the right place?" asked Destiny. "In our time, me and Rachel awoke to a world controlled by Nazis. When the both of us clearly knew different, the Allies won the war, not the Axis. We figured something must have changed the timeline, and here we are," explained Shadowcat. The blonde up on the roofs listened with rapt attention as the one known as Rachel continued where her friend left off. "Kitty is right. We eventually found out that a man named Baron Wolfgang von Strucker allied himself with a being known simply as the Shadow King. Together they either forced Britain to abstinate from the war or have them join them. One or the other, neither ended well for our future. Is there anything else you can tell us?" A gruff voice asked. The only other information we gathered was them, along with another man, tried to replace the current British monarch to the throne with a man named Oswald Mosley, an ally for Nazi Germany. Explained Rachel. Hearing that got Naruto up, there was a group brave enough to try and replace Albert Frederick Arthur George, or George VI. This would need to be stopped before it could happen. So you're saying that if we kill this Nazi Baron von Strucker, then none of this happens? Questioned the one with the gruff voice. The other four shared a concerned, at least that's what he thought they did, look with one another. It was the one known as Mystique to answer his question. All of us have learned to kill, Logan. But more importantly, we have learned not to kill. And to know the difference. Stated the feminine voice. The gruff one crossed his arms in annoyance, clearly not liking the approach they were thinking of taking. He sniffed the air once more. Is something wrong? Asked Mystique. She knew the man from a few years back and knew his instincts were second to none. So when he smelt something, she knew he found something. I ain't sure. Logan replied gruffly. I can smell something out there, but I ain't sure what it is. Naruto knew that was his cue. He sprang from his position between the five and immediately went for the two cloaked figures known as Logan and Mystique. Past. That was the word Kitty would use to describe the shadowy figure currently attacking them. This person had quickly and easily taken out Mystique. She may have not liked working with Mystique, but beggars can't be choosers. Besides, it wasn't like this one was the same as the future one, right? She snapped out of her daze and focused on the figure of Logan, trying to pummel the mystery man with varying degrees of difficulty. The other man on the other hand was literally dancing circles around the shorter man, moving with an unnatural grace and speed. It was almost like she were staring at an alternate version of Spider-Man. He seemed to predict where Logan's every strike was going to hit even before he did, just like the webhead would. She looked over to see both Destiny and Rachel as cool as cucumbers. They obviously knew something she didn't. Before she could question them, she didn't notice the large shadow coming right at her. By the time she realized it, she was on the ground unconscious beneath the weight of Logan. She had no time to use her powers. "Peace, newcomer, we mean you or this country no harm," calmly stated Destiny. "How do you figure that? You all wearing cloaks and talking in an alleyway seems might suspicious to me," replied Naruto. "Easy, had I wanted to, I could have informed my friends of your presence 10 minutes ago and we would have been ready for you," she stated. "What the hell is she talking about? Can she see the future?" "Yes she can," answered Rachel. Naruto looked at her sharply. How had she known what he asked? "Because I'm a telepath and like her I knew you were watching us. I read your feelings and knew you were an okay person. You only wanted to watch out for the home that has given you so much in so short a time." "Telepath. She read my feelings. What the hell is going on with these two? And how does she know that?" Rachel shook her head and sighed. "I can see this is going to take a while to explain. And I might as well get it done before the trigger finger wakes up." She was referring to Logan as she walked over to his downed form. Right now, these people were the only lead he had to stopping a potential monarch switch. He decided to hear them out. Naruto's head was a mess right now. And that wasn't because of the 3 people he had knocked out trying to strangle him. His head was a mess because of what he had just learned. Supposedly, 2 of them, Rachel and Kitty, were from the future come back to try and stop a nefarious plot from taking place. Time travel, it was just a convoluted mess that just thinking of all the possibilities would turn your brain to mush. Perhaps that's what happened to him. Maybe he had somehow been jettisoned from a point in the past or the future to this current era. He just shook his head at that whole mess. The only thing he could find some solace in was they were trying to help this country, which meant they were on the same side and would work together to stop this mess. And then the things about mutants. They were people born with an extra gene, called the X gene or something, and that gave people powers or mutations. He didn't want to admit it, but perhaps he and his people had an extra gene as well. It would certainly explain all of their mutations, only difference was theirs weren't random like they were here. Apparently, these mutations could manifest something simple as making copies of oneself, not unlike his own technique, to controlling energy or bending reality itself. Or in Rachel's case, moving through time. Then there was Irene, or Destiny as she liked to be called. Born blind, her gift manifested one day and found she could see the paths. Her powers were precognitive, meaning she knew what was going to happen and what the best choice of action would usually always be. It was like his Sharingan but on a much larger scale. It was how she knew he was there watching and did nothing when he suddenly dropped in amongst their group. And then the telepathy thing, a person who can read your mind, a shiver ran through his body at that. Somehow, someway, he would need to find a way to stop someone from entering his mind and making him a puppet. He'd done it enough to not want it done to him. And then the thing that took the cake as they say, he had asked Destiny if she could see what his path was and she told him it was blank. Meaning he could either take any or make his own. He had chosen another question to ask. "Can you see anything of the people who brought me here?" he asked her, not caring if the others heard. Destiny closed her eyes and began to focus, trying to give him an answer. After a few minutes she fell down on the ground, gasping for breath. She looked up to him. "I'm afraid whatever it is you're searching for is beyond even my abilities. It is on a far grander scale than anything I have ever felt," she replied. Naruto didn't like the sound of that. "Enough with this chit-chat. Are we going to carry out this mission or not?" Logan was ready for some action, and right now he was staring at the blonde who had taken him down. Naruto looked in Logan's direction, he could see the feral man wanting a piece of him for what he did earlier. Everyone aside, only Logan and Mystique had not shown him their abilities, and he had only shown them his manipulation of fire. There was the possibility that both Irene and Rachel knew he was withholding information, if they did they made no fuss over it. He was thankful for that, he didn't think this place could handle if he really went all out. "If you lot are going through with this mission, then I will need to inform my friend Winston." "What, you need your daddy's permission to get something done?" sneered Logan. Naruto paid him no attention. "No, I don't need his permission, but he is a major player in British politics. It would be far easier for us to get in with anything of the monarch rather than trying to wing it your way," replied the blonde, a smirk playing on his lips when the growling receded. Logan gave him a nod at the solid plan. "It would be far easier if they did that." Mystique sighed and rubbed what he believed to be her temples. "Very well, we have a plan. How do you want to proceed?" "Well, how good are you at infiltration?" It seemed they had taken his words of infiltration wrong, what he meant was that he alone would be doing that particular job while the others did theirs. There had been some debate on the subject, two of them saying they could get the job done just as good as he would. He did not doubt them of their supposed skill, but since this was something in his pseudo-country, he had more right than them. The original plan had been to infiltrate the home via party guests on the eve of the new year, but it was shot down immediately by Mystique. The plan had been for him and Irene to enter as guests, while the remaining members of the group be their maids and servants. None of them liked that idea. So here he was, up in the rafters of the long-standing home, which has been passed down from father to son for generations. While he was patiently waiting for his target to make his appearance, his eyes began to scan over the guests. He easily spotted his temporary teammates. He had to admit to himself that once the cloaks had come off, all four women were very beautiful. Red hair sat atop three of their heads, while only Kitty had hazel brown. Rachel had faint markings on the skin of her face, but she didn't seem to mind them, she said they gave her more character. And if anyone made fun of them she would kick their ass, he could respect a woman who could back her words up. Kitty, or Catherine, as he had been so informed, was the calculating type, just like himself. Her powers allowed her to become intangible, which was exactly like one of his own techniques, but she could go for much longer. Irene, despite being blind, had a regal look to her beauty, from the way she walked to the way she spoke to you. And then to the woman lover, Mystique. What could he say about her? She was by far the most unique amongst them, her type of beauty was exotic. She could be the best thing that happened to you but also your last. She was a shapeshifter. You would never know if the person you were talking to was the actual person or not, that was how well the mimicry was. Her blue skin did nothing to dissuade his opinion of her, she was still beautiful yet deadly. And then there was Logan. The only other male in the group. While the two may have gotten off on the wrong foot, each knew the other was skilled and they could at least respect the other for it. The two were polar opposites, he was calm and composed, while Logan would oftentimes use rage to fight, leading to more injuries than when he first began. Their jobs were straightforward for each of them. Logan would protect Rachel while she fought against what she claimed as the second strongest psychic of the future, only to some man named Charles. Kitty would protect Irene, who would be feeding them information of the different possibilities that could occur that evening. Kitty was the quick escape route should they manage to find them. Mystique would be running interference on the ground, switching between different guests and herding some to different areas. His musings on his team had been cut short when he spotted his target. Judging by what he had been told of the man's appearance, he could say with certainty that this was the man, although he was missing a few minor scars. Strucker was a man who appeared to be about 40, bald head, dark brown eyes, and a manacle in his right eye. It was easy to see the man had noble blood running through his veins, as he easily mingled with the guests while slowly maneuvering his way towards the king with practiced ease. He wore a dark suit that, when hitting a specific angle in the light, appeared to be a greenish color. The man he was talking to, however, was something else. Power, undiluted power, was rolling off this man or being, as he was told. He had tried making sense of just what sort of creature he was dealing with, but all he was told was that it was a being of the multiverse, existing on all planes of reality. The man he was masquerading around as was the biggest person by far at the party, both in height and weight. He wore a white suit with a purple dress shirt, shoes, hat, glasses, and a wooden cane. The gold and yellow sash was wrapped around his arm. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that the Nazi had already begun to talk to the king and slowly began to sequester him out of sight. It seemed it was time to get to work. He whistled a faint message to Logan, whom he knew would hear it, telling him to give the go-ahead for the mission start. Without waiting to see if they got the message, he melted into the shadows. The first steps towards Nazi Germany controlling the world would be taken here, among the denizens of Britain. He would replace the monarch with one of their own people, and at long last, their major obstacle would be out of the way. All he needed to do was kill the unsuspecting fool in front of him. It would be easy to simply kill him, but he wanted the man to see who had done it. To see the shock on his face. Slowly slipping out a concealed dagger from his boot, he was ready to kill the man when he heard a whizzing noise piercing the air. And before he knew it, pain exploded from behind him and he was suddenly on the ground writhing, reaching for his back. Whatever had hit him had pierced his skin and twisted, lodging themselves deeply. He gritted his teeth and pushed himself up with labored breath, pulling the king closer to himself and holding him at knife point. His eyes searched everywhere they could frantically, looking for any form of a moving body, while his breathing became faster. Tsubaki no Mai dance of the camellia. Whatever he had heard, clearly he could not understand it, mere gibberish it sounded like. Pain once more encountered his body, but this time it was everywhere. Slashes appeared on his back, arms, legs, and chest. His pain tolerance could only take so much before he either lost consciousness or he died, neither would be favorable. So he did the only sensible thing, he retreated, but not before ensuring his escape. Strucker stabbed the king through the stomach, dropping the man on the floor to bleed out. Naruto had seen what the idiot had done and immediately stopped his attack and went to the side of the downed man. Strucker caught sight of him and turned around to say something, but was caught off guard by another assailant who swung downwards and greatly wounded his face. "Arg. My face." He screamed out in pain. Before the duplicate could finish off the job, an entire group of Nazis entered through the back door, each brandishing weapons. Naruto knew it would only take a few seconds before they both died. He grabbed the still bleeding king and vanished. Naruto and company reappeared in a secluded area and he had gotten the memories of his clone. He shook his head of them and began to heal the man. Chmsenjutsu mystical palm technique. Color was slowly beginning to return to the man's face while the wound began to repair. The king would survive to see another day. He created another clone and had it stay with the man and then dispel when they found him. He needed to see how the rest of the team fared tonight. The blonde found the group huddled together around the downed form of the large man. The party had been vacated, he would need to see if Winston made it out alright. "So I take it went well." "You got that right, this punk couldn't stand up to the Phoenix," proclaimed Rachel with a smug smirk. "Phoenix? What's that?" "Like the summon," thought Naruto in confusion. "I don't know what a summon is, but it's better if you don't know what I'm talking about," stated the telepath. He shrugged. "What happened to Strucker?" asked Kitty. "He got away, but the primary goal of this mission has been completed. Neither Germany nor the Nazis rule this country. Hopefully that will be enough." Before he could reply, a loud ominous gong-like sound went off. Ding. Ding. He looked around and spotted a very big clock, the time was now 12 midnight. "Happy New Year," shouted both Kitty and Rachel. It was now January 1st, 1939. Naruto was unaware of the customs of this time of year and asked the significance of this time. "It's to celebrate the coming of the new year while leaving behind the past one. It's the start of something new for everyone. Plus we get to do this as a custom." Rachel lifted up his mask so only his nose and mouth could be seen and she gave him a deep kiss, tongue and everything. The blonde Uchiha was physically shocked at this display that he didn't stop Kitty when she did the same thing, they even guided Irene over to try. Mystique grumbled something and he could see the hue of pink dusting her cheeks as she gave him a light one. "I really like this custom," he stated. 3 of the 4 women giggled softly and then looked between the men. He looked at Logan. Logan just looked right back at him. "I ain't giving you a smooch if that's why you're looking at me for," growled out the man. Naruto just shook his head and offered his hand. Logan looked at it and actually gave him a smirk, he grasped it in his hand and they shook. "Hajebmshai." The group turned their heads to the sound of the voice, it was Winston. "Is the king safe?" "But he is, he's in that room over there." "Good." Winston breathed a sigh of relief. "I'll get someone to go and get him, but that isn't the only reason I came back here." Naruto and the rest noticed the grim look the man wore on his face. "What happened?" "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, especially after what you fine folks did tonight. Germany has allied with Italy. World War II has officially begun." Naruto was currently in his room, packing his gear for a long-term mission he had been assigned by his friend, Prime Minister Winston Churchill. The mission was simple, infiltrate Germany, find Hitler and then kill him. It sounded simple on paper, but he knew it would be anything but. There were always variables that popped up, like these so-called mystery men in America. He would have liked to have gone on this mission with a full team that had worked well together just a few weeks ago, but they had other obligations. Rachel and Kitty had returned to their time, while Logan stated he had only helped because Mystique and Irene were friends of his. He went back to Canada. Speaking of the blue-skinned woman and her blind companion, they had agreed to help since their place of current residence just happened to be Britain. For obvious reasons, Irene would stay behind and continue her role as their contact. "Are you ready to go, Mystique?" The blue woman turned to him and gave him a nod. He looked at her for a moment. "I have no qualms if you wish to leave the country as you are and enter another, but we need to do this quietly and without anyone noticing us. And well. I'm what, blue?" He nodded. "I mean no offense as I just stated, but if we want this to succeed and protect our home and family, then you need to alter your appearance." She sighed. "Fine, just give me a moment." Before his eyes, the blue woman began to change shape into that of a man. He was taller than him by far as the muscles in the shirt bulged a bit, a brown overcoat covered the body, while a white shirt and black pants covered everything else. A hat rested atop his head and his face was obscured so that only those close enough could really see his face. "For the duration of this mission, you may call me the Unknown Soldier." End of chapter 1. New York 1939. Rising from the north, the sun bathed the city with its warm rays, signaling those asleep it was time for the day to begin. Sidewalks were lined with people of all ages, whether they be young, old, or in between, all of them had someplace to be. Automobiles were honking for others to move out of their way, or even at some pedestrians who were unlucky enough to have been forced off the sidewalk. It was nothing but pure chaos out on the streets of New York. However, far away from the hustle and bustle of the Big Apple, a middle-aged man scurried back and forth with as much energy as his body could muster. He was moving from workstation to workstation in his small laboratory. This man was Phineas Thomas Horton, sole creator of the Horton cell. Brilliant was a word many in the fields of engineering, medicine, and psychology would often use to describe the PhD scientist. Dangerous, out of the box, unorthodox were words the more conservative ilk of the scientific community would describe him as. A trailblazer, that's what he was, always constantly pushing the boundaries of science. His cells are synthetic replicas of human cells using plastic and carbon polymers. They duplicate the structures found in organic human cells. Some even referred to the doctor as a modern-day Prometheus, stealing fire from the heavens and handing a human torch to man. Such was his creation. Breakthroughs such as this would often leave said creator wealthy beyond his wildest dreams. This was not the case, exact opposite really. He lived in obscurity, all he had was a small home and a mediocre vehicle, but he did have a loving wife. She was his rock. However, for all the good he's done in the world of science, he was still only human, a man, and by that nature, he desired. What he currently had was not enough. He desired fame and fortune. Not only for himself, but for his wife, and even possibly a family sometime in the future. Using his mind to acquire such status and wealth was the only option he had, his looks or age certainly wouldn't help him. Standing at 5'10", 133 pounds, he was too small and pudgy to be taken seriously by future employers who would pay hefty sums. Some even told him he didn't have the correct combination of features. His face was circular, short brown hair, a bristling mustache, light blue eyes, and glasses. Certainly, his looks would not get it done. No, they would not. Which was why his next invention would turn the scientific world on its head and would indeed see his goals accomplished. Granted, he was only 1/3 of the invention, but the other two had just disappeared, their loss was his gain. "You're going to be my ticket to a life of luxury," Phineas told the synthetic body lying on the table. With the fireproofing method developed by his then science partner and his own Horton cells being added, they would create something revolutionary. Turning away from his meal ticket, he took a look at the calendar in his office and the specific date that was circled. Soon, the day would come when he unveiled his project to the New York press. "Soon you will make your to me human torch." Meanwhile, across the globe, two figures were silently traversing the rooftops of Dusseldorf, capital city of German state North Rhine-Westphalia. Despite the late hour, people should have still been flooding the streets of the international and financial hub of the state. Currently it was desolate. Nazi occupation had seen to that, subjugating the people under their iron fist. Both shadows had been following lead after lead once this war had started, whether they be for assassinations or rescues. Tonight was a rescue and a very important one. The Nazi threat had captured a high-profile target, one who could possibly change the war. Naruto, the lead shadow in this operation, felt today was going to be a very important day. Softly fondling the tender radio earpiece, he tapped it lightly. "Mystique, do you copy? Over." No response. He knew she was fine, she was jumping from rooftop to rooftop right next to him, perhaps she had a faulty piece of tech. He tried again. Mystique. I'm here, Ichiha. She responded in an irritated tone. Naruto had relented and given her one of his surnames, or more like until she stopped badgering him about it. It would however be a while before he gave his first name. They weren't that close of friends yet. Well, what do you want? Is something wrong? He asked, quite unsure of what was wrong with her. No. A tone of finality in her voice. Now he knew that was a lie, her body language just screamed it. Mystique. His voice was cold and his tone hard, he was commanding her to explain. There was no room for any of this when on such a delicate mission. She heard the command and sighed, it's just he don't want to leave Irene alone for so long, what if something happens while I'm not there? She's more than just my friend, she muttered the last part. Understanding shone in his eyes, he knew where she was coming from. Irene for her was her anchor, her lover, and perhaps even her other half. Regardless of what they shared, he understood. He was much the same with his own spouses. Try not to worry about it, worrying will only lead to paranoia. Winston assured me his home is well guarded and he would watch over her. He said, trying to calm her down a bit. She didn't say anything, taking in his words. She gave him a nod. By the way. Why aren't you in your soldier disguise? He questioned. She was currently in her very womanly form. It's dark out, no one will be able to see us. Her answer was simple. And even if they did, I could just change it. He shrugged his shoulders. Very well then. Ichiha. Yes. I know this is an out-of-the-blue question, but where did you get these radios from? She questioned him. They seem way too high-tech to be from Britain. Ah, these were actually purchased from a company over in America. It's run by some genius millionaire fella named Howard Stark or something. But the earpiece being so small, there was no real need to camouflage them. But it wasn't the outer design that made them so special, it was the tech put into it. Apparently, these couldn't be traced or picked up by other signals, or so said the manufacturers. I see, I think I've heard of this Stark guy, she said. As he was about to respond, he saw their destination. Heads up, we're coming up on our building. Remember, sneak in, remove our target, sneak out. Let's try and do this as quietly and cleanly as possible. Copy. Orders should we encounter interference or another high-profile target. He knew whom she was referring to, and he gave her the instructions. Adapt, but our priority is still our first target. Understand? She nodded. Got it. Standing across the building, the blonde crouched down and waited. This was something that had been decided early on, they did not want to make any form of noise, so that meant no grappling hooks to try and climb up the building. Instead, Naruto would carry Mystique up the side using his chakra. This is so embarrassing. Mystique muttered as a light pink dusted her own cheeks. You better not grab or squeeze my butt. Only Irene can do that. That sounds pretty hot. Naruto admitted to himself. He nodded. Climbing onto his back, she wrapped her slender arms around his neck and gave him a stiff nod, she was ready. The blonde Ichiha had decided to play a little prank on her, he jumped straight off the edge. Her face was buried in his shoulder as she let out a scream at the sudden weightlessness she felt. The bastard. Don't do that. She hissed in his ear, glaring at him as held back her tears. Normally she wasn't afraid of heights, but when she was trusting her safety to someone else, it was a different matter. She didn't like not being in control of a situation. Sorry, I just wanted to alleviate some of the nervousness in your system. He chuckled as he said this. Ass. They landed on the ground without so much as a sound, he sped towards the vertical wall and began his climb up. Mystique shook her head at just how easy things were for this man, he seemed to be born and bred for espionage and battle. I wonder if the way he sticks to the walls is part of a mutation. Her thoughts were cut short as she felt the sense of weightlessness once more as his foot slipped, but it was soon replaced with something else, a stinging pain. Ow. She muffled her cry of pain. She scowled at him. I thought I told you not to grab or squeeze my butt. She said in a controlled anger. He looked abashed, even with his mask on. I did no such thing, I simply slipped and I just happened to pinch your butt. Total difference. Mystique was still scowling. Damn loophole. Well, don't do that either, no grabbing, squeezing, pinching, roaming, cupping or anything else that has to deal with my butt. She didn't hear him sigh, but she knew he did it. Fine. There were no more incidents as they made their way up, except for the few times the blonde slipped on the building. He said it was because the building was slick after the showers early on in the night. She didn't believe him of course and slapped him upside the head every time he did it, safe to say he stopped after the fourth time. We're here. He said, rubbing the back of his sore head. It wasn't his fault he liked women so much, blame his wives for that. Finally. Said Mystique and she began to look around for an entry point. She found one. We can get in through here. She pointed at an air vent. Come on. She went in first. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Did what he did in the last few seconds just not happen? Why did she go in first? It seemed she finally realized it as well. You better not be staring. She warned. Don't worry, I'm not. He lied, of course he was going to stare. When you told someone not to do something, you were practically inviting them to do so. Plus, how could he call himself a hot-blooded man if he couldn't admire the sight in front of him? After traveling in the somewhat spacious vents for a few seconds, his companion came to a halt, his head bumping right into her rump. Sorry. He whispered. He heard the growling. Well, why did you stop? He was going to try and defend himself. There is a divergent up here, left or right. His demeanor changed. This was the real beginning of the mission. You go left, try and find the target, don't radio in until you do. She nodded, her radio line going silent. If you come across something you feel is important, then make a note of it and give me the details later. She turned her head back and gave him a nod. Good luck, stay safe, and I'll meet you soon. He told her as she disappeared into the left tunnel while he went the opposite. After moving through the vents for a few minutes, he would go down a floor and start his search anew. Thus far, nothing significant has caught his eye. A few of the rooms he came across were either empty or occupied by some grunts. Currently, he was about a floor above the basement where their target was most likely being held. It made sense since, also, Mystique had yet to radio in. Mentally sighing, he came across the last room and peered inside through the small bars on the vent. A single man was in the room, his eyes recognized him immediately. The young adult stood in the room, uniform in pristine condition, not a speck of dirt on it. This man was second in command of the Nazi Empire, right hand to its dictator. This man was Johann Schmidt, protege of the Führer himself. If he's here, then Hitler may not be far behind. The parameters of the mission were still the same, but an added opportunity had presented itself, and he would be remiss if he did not at least try to take it. Trying to kill him now would be a mistake that could potentially bring harm to their target. Johann was a high-ranking Nazi whose presence would be recognized immediately if he was missing, if even for a moment. For now he would just continue to watch. Continue he did as the right-hand man went about his daily routines, ever unaware of being watched. The man had went over to his desk, dug through it, and emerged with two items. Activating his ninjutsu, he could make out two black gloves that he put on and tightened. The other item was a mask, a pure red one, but a mask nonetheless. Before he could discern the significance of said mask, the man began to move. Following him out of the room through the vents, he watched as the man boarded an elevator. The symbols on top of the elevator signaled he was going down. Uchiha, do you copy? Over. Naruto quirked an eyebrow, her calling him now meant that whatever was going down in a matter of moments. Go ahead. I found our target. He's in the basement and he's surrounded by a lot of Nazis. Grunts, or have you spotted any big fish? Mostly grunts. Orders. I'm on my way, wait until I arrive before doing anything. If they look like they are going to kill him, I give you permission to interfere. Hopefully it won't degrade that far, but you never know. Understood, I await your arrival. Going a level lower and moving his body through the vents, he finally met up with his companion. Any update? She didn't answer, wondering why he moved in next to her and peered into the room. He now understood why. There he was, the man who had raped his own country, killed his own people who did not share his ideals, and then proceeded to do the same unto others. A monster in human skin. Adolf Hitler. Naruto had been in a war, he fought in the Fourth Shinobi War, and even from the information he read about the previous three, none of the leaders of the time killed their own people or did that to their country. This monster truly knew no bounds. The man truly was an ugly creature, short, pudgy, greasy black hair, stupid-looking mustache, and he was old. It was no wonder really why he had to flail his arms around like some raving lunatic, it was so people would pay attention to him. His vision went from the enemy of the world to their target, the man whom they had been sent deep into enemy territory to retrieve. A Dr. Abraham Erskine, a brilliant scientist whom many believed had found a way to winning this war. It was most likely the reason why he was being interrogated or pummeled. Wait, isn't that? Naruto knew exactly who that interrogator was, that was Schmidt, only no, he was wearing his red mask. Please, why are you doing this to me? Naruto heard Erskine ask. Because my good doctor, you have something I need. Your formula to create superior beings is exactly what my army needs, with it we will overwhelm her enemies and win this war. But I don't have anything like tea. That he was cut off as he was slapped in the face, hard. Don't lie to me, yelled Hitler. If you hadn't, you just may have lived. I read your research, doctor, I know you have some of it finished. In fact, I already have the sample. What I brought you here for was to see if you would cooperate or not. Clearly you aren't. But that formula isn't C-compil. Silence. Naruto silently watched as the tyrant paced back and forth. Hopefully with an incomplete formula, whoever Hitler has drink it will die. You've become well acquainted with my apprentice, wrote Shaddle. The Red Skull. Naruto supposed the name fit, considering the red mask and all. Johann did cut an imposing figure, it was no wonder he was the enforcer of the Nazis. He will be the first of many to take this new formula, he will lift Germany and the Third Reich to their rightful place as gods of the new world. He preached, completely enamoring all those within the room. Hitler handed the liquid substance to his protege and gave him a nod. Johann downed the substance without a second thought. Mystique, we're going to move in a few seconds. Whether the skull has a violent reaction or not, this is our opportunity. You disguise yourself as a Nazi officer transporting the prisoner away from the sudden attack area, I'll provide you with cover. And if the chance arises, I'll take out Hitler. Before either of them moved, a blood-curdling scream resounded throughout the room, Johann was beginning to spasm. It didn't last long before he became still. Did he die standing on his feet? It didn't matter if he did, Naruto dug through his two pouches and threw a shuriken straight at Hitler, while two small balls rolled into the ground. To his surprise, a lone hand reached out and snatched his shuriken out of the air, it was the skull. Before any of the Nazis could register the attack on their leader's life, smoke erupted all around the room. It was time to begin. Breaking through the vent, the two landed below and went to work. Mystique went for the prisoner and easily dispatched the two guardsmen, they were on the ground before they knew what hit them. She whisked away the doctor from the action. Naruto meanwhile was killing any of the men who had tried taking a step after the doctor with ease. He thrust his palm upwards and caved in a man's face, while simultaneously fingering a kunai and tossing a trident at Hitler's head. Once more, it was stopped. Incredible, truly incredible, muttered Johann. Get the fur out of here, I will handle this pest, said the skull as he discarded the weapon. The blonde didn't know the effects of what the formula was doing to the man's body at the moment, but he knew it would take more than a few seconds or a spasm for him to adjust. He moved into attack, kunai in hand. Each strike was aimed with deadly accuracy, yet each time it was parried just as magnificently with a metal pistol the skull had drawn. Deciding he didn't want to get shot again, he would need to dislodge the weapon from his hand. Sendan 10-finger drilling bullets. Ardent bones shot out from his fingertips, take Johann by complete surprise. Arg. A few had managed to tag him. Their high-velocity spinning motion digging further and further into the meat of the human body. One of the bullets had knocked the gun out of his hand and it went sliding across the room. Ignoring the pain, the skull used his newfound speed and went to retrieve his weapon, only problem was, he couldn't control it very well. He crashed into a wall. While the sight was undignified for a man so high up the food chain, something became very clear to the blonde. The skull was adjusting to his newfound abilities, just before he had crashed, the man's muscles held firm, he was trying to get his body to stop. He was learning too quickly. It was time to end this mock battle, if left unchecked, Naruto held no doubt this man would prove more of a menace than Hitler. Adding more chakra to his eyes, his regular blood-red eyes morphed in his Iron no Manjikam Sharingan. The six-pointed star that once represented his iris turned into an elongated shuriken when his eyes merged with Shisui's. The blooming flower pattern had shrunk from 6 sides down to 3, they almost resembled 3 separate iris. He focused his left eye on the skull. Amaterasu heavenly, illumination. He called forth the black flames that burned hotter than the sun to consume the man in front of them. Nothing happened. He tried once more. Amaterasu. Nothing. He could feel the chakra wanting to burst forth from his eye to ravage, to feed upon the flesh of its master enemy. Something was holding them back, by what, Naruto had not a clue. If he couldn't burn the man, perhaps he could probe him. He focused his right eye. Dsukuyomi moon, reader. Once more, nothing happened. By this point, the skull had managed to shake off his disorientation from his head-on meeting with the wall earlier, he grabbed his weapon and fired off a few shots. Shaking off his own shock at 2 of his strongest attacks failing him, he dodged the coming projectiles. Whatever the man was shooting at him, they weren't regular bullets. A small sizzling was coming from the spots the bullets had hit. Seeing that his weapon and his special-made bullets were at best just prolonging this battle, Johann decided that a retreat was in order. Pushing a button that was located near a desk, a wall behind him caved in, revealing a tube. "Till we meet again, Kajebmshai," called out Johann. Of course Johann knew who this man was, the reports he had read from his officers had made mention of a shadow killing his men with impunity. He was convinced that the man behind the mask was using the occult to augment his prowess in battle, he was convinced of it. He needed to find a way to make use of the same power. Before Naruto could attack, the tube that protected his enemy suddenly closed and vanished with blistering speeds down below. The building around him began to collapse as he figured that whatever the skull had done was not just for his ride, but for this as well. He wanted to try and bury him alive. Shit. He had been so close to killing two men who would no doubt further cause pain and anguish to the people of the world. Dodging the falling debris of the room, he vanished. Appearing outside of the crumbling building, he looked around for any sign of Mystique and the doctor. Finding none, he tapped his earpiece. "Mystique, do you copy? Over." Hopefully the signal strength would reach. "I'm here, me and the doctor got out safe." "Good, are you back at the safe house?" "We are en route, due to arrive in 10 minutes." "Okay, I'll meet you there and then from there we can head back to Britain." Mission accomplished. Britain. Naruto watched as the best medical doctors Winston could hire on such short notice went to work on the doctor they just saved. It had been just a little over 12 hours since Hay had come back home, he should be resting, like Mystique was, but he wanted to see how bad the doctor had it. "How is he?" he asked the head doctor. "Physically he's fine, just a bit of bruising, with a bit of rest that will clear up. Mentally though, that will take some time." Naruto nodded, it would take the man some time to overcome almost meeting with death. He had come close at one point as well, it was a tough obstacle to beat, but once you did, you came out stronger in the end. He did. A yawn escaped his mouth, he was going to sleep for a few hours, first though, he wanted to check up on Mystique. See how she was doing after this whole thing. After that he was going to look into why his ocular powers had left him high and dry. Stopping in front of the shared room of Irene and Mystique, he knocked twice and waited. He heard some muffled noises. "Come in." What was that he just heard in that tone of voice? It sounded awfully familiar. Naruto opened the door and walked into two naked bodies, one holding the other in a tight embrace, the other gleefully exploring her lover body. He just stood there watching, completely forgetting why he even went there in the first place. Mystique was probably too tired, or else she would have been yelling at him angrily to leave, while Irene didn't seem to have any shame, clearly showing him a prime view of her honeypot. Huggus Mystique is a natural redhead. As he thought this and clearly looking at her, she seemed to snap out of whatever pleasure-induced daze she was in. "What the hell are you doing here? And where are you looking?" "Ah, sorry about this. I just wanted to come and check to see how you were doing. I'll just leave and come back later." "Don't come back." "Wait." Naruto turned around, that last voice didn't belong to his blue friend. "What's the matter, Irene? Would you like to join us?" she said in a seductive voice. Irene wanted to try a threesome, and Naruto was the best person to do it with. For one, she liked him, regardless of what he looked like, and secondly, Mystique liked him as well. That was big, she never liked anyone. Sure, she held respect for certain people, but never like. Naruto would have discarded his clothes immediately and jumped in, but one look from Mystique halted that progression of events. Any other day he would have, but he decided that the blue woman needed some alone time. "So," it was with a heavy sigh, he replied. "Perhaps another time." Irene frowned and reluctantly accepted his refusal. Mystique sent him a glare, but gave him a nod of thanks for his consideration. He reciprocated. Once he stepped out of the room and closed the door, he sighed. They weren't very subtle with their affections for one another, he could hear them clear as day. "The things I do for a friend," he muttered. "Ah, Naruto," called out Winston. "I've been looking for you, my boy, I have information I want you to look over for your next mission." Naruto sighed again, which is something he's been doing a lot of recently. "Lead the way." 1 year later. Britain 1940. A full year had come and gone in the blink of an eye to most, but to those who were fighting, it felt like 5 had passed them by. Thousands died by the days as countries fought one another. There had however been some good news, but with all the good came some bad. The good was not for the country of Britain but of America. Naruto had read it in the papers when it had hit the world. Apparently, 2 so-called Atlantean had come to the surface world to return 2 men, who just happened to be Nazi spies, and a fight ensued. One of them was a man, the other was a woman. The press had gotten hold of their names, since it appeared that both Atlantean were honorable warriors. They gave their names to their opponents, the man's name was Namor, whom the press had dubbed Namor the Submariner, while the woman was his sister, whom was named Anna Curry, she was named Aquawoman. Their qualm with the surface world was because of the 2 idiots trying to invade their country of Atlantis, the rest was history. But even then, the discovery of a new race, at least to him, or the discovery of an underwater kingdom, wasn't the end of it. It was the 2 men whom had fought the Atlantean back into the water. A Stephen Rogers as Captain America and Jim Hammond as the Human Torch. Rogers was genetically enhanced human with the help of a now deceased Dr. Abraham Erskine. The same man he and Mystique had saved over a year ago. Personally, he felt that the name of the first hero was a bit much, naming himself after a country was a bit much, but to each their own he supposed. The other fit perfectly, the man literally lit a blaze. And then there was the sightings of these mystery men, of whom had not been captured on camera. Too many variables were beginning to pop up all over the place. That was pretty much where the good news ended and the bad news began, for him at least. He had tried over and over to unsuccessfully call about his ocular techniques. It got to the point of frustration and he had decided to take a break from it. Perhaps whatever was happening would resolve itself over time. So for now he would wait. His other abilities his eyes gave him though, those still functioned correctly. He could still put someone under a deep hypnosis without his eyes using chakra. Naruto. Putting his paper down, he looked into the eyes of the much older Winston Churchill. What's the matter, Winston? The war had put more years on this man than on any other in this country. The older man sighed heavily. I have some good news, bad news, and worse news. Which would you like to hear first? Naruto was frowning, he didn't like the sound of the last two. Give me the bad news first. I tried to get America to act, the threat Hitler represents is just too grand to ignore. My informant told me they sent 2 agents to Germany, but they were captured. The blonde hummed at that, why would they only send 2, unless there was something special about them? 2 questions. These 2 agents, are they the so-called mystery men? And who is this informant to get such information? I'd like to meet him or her. You are correct in your first assumption, they are indeed mystery men. Naruto frowned again, why wasn't the man telling him the whole story here? Come clean with me for a moment, Winston, do you know who these men are? Winston sighed but nodded. They aren't officially sanctioned by President Roosevelt, but they help when they can. They call themselves the Justice Society of America. I see. Man, what is it with these Americans and having the name America and everything? First it was the captain and now this. Winston nodded his head, he couldn't help but agree with his blonde friend. Okay, with that done with. Who is your informant? Before I tell you, you must swear never to reveal his name to anyone or risk being charged with treason. Naruto agreed and was curious as to who this person was, if it warranted this harsh of a punishment. His name is Lord James Montgomery Falsworth, or as our countrymen and enemies know him, Union Jack. Who is that? He is a hero who fought our enemies in World War I and continues the good fight till this day. Can I meet him? It's a possibility for the future but not right now. Very well then. Naruto knew when not to push things. Give me some good news. We located Hitler, this time without his attack dog, the Red Skull. Just him and regular agents. Naruto had a bad feeling come over him. And the worst news. He is in control of a super weapon. A heavy silence fell between the two as Winston chose not to continue so as to allow his friend to gather his thoughts. What's the weapon, a missile or something? Or something, have you ever heard of the Spear of Destiny? Can't say that I have. It goes by many names, the Lance of Longinus or the Spear of Longinus. It is the spear used to pierce the side of Jesus Christ, Son of God. Please spare me the semantics, Winston. Just inform me what we're dealing with here. Well, I don't rightly know, there isn't much information that dates that far back on such an ancient weapon. The only reason some of us worry is because of the legends behind it. And those are? If these legends could give him some type of clue as to what he was dealing with here, he would take it. Anyone who wields it is made invulnerable to attacks. That part sounded very vague to Naruto. It will allow the user to sway people's minds. A dangerous ability, Naruto conceded. They are granted immense power, enough to conquer the world. I see. This sounded like something he usually dealt with back in the elemental nations. When do you want me and Mystique to head out and what are our objectives? Leave within the next 5 hours, your objectives are to stop whatever Hitler is planning, take back the spear, and lastly if you have the opportunity, kill the tyrant. A snake isn't much without its head. Those 3 things above all else are what you need to focus on. Both of Naruto's brows rose in surprise. Not even going to try and save the 2 captured agents. If we do, that could be an olive branch of some sort. He put forward his idea, but he knew there were always sacrifices that needed to be made in times of war. If you can, then do it. But don't let their priority distract you from your primary goal. Understood? Naruto nodded. Understood. Hopefully they could accomplish all of their goals and no one would die today. Good. Dismissed. He got up from his seat and went to find his partner. Mystique sighed, she was having a nice quiet moment with her lover, just resting her head on Irene's flat stomach. Nothing could break up the serene moment for her. Back up, we're shipping out in a few hours. Except for that. She opened her eyes a bit, narrowing them, giving Naruto a glare. The past year had allowed them to bond a bit more, especially when dealing with life or death situations. It was those times that you really saw a person and safe to say, they both liked what they had seen. Things were much smoother between them. Don't look at me like that, Raven. She had given him her actual name just as he had given his to her over the year. You think I want to go out? He questioned. I don't, but if not us then who, and besides, we really need to stop Hitler's plan. She could hear the severity in the tone of his voice. What's the mission? Stop a tyrant from using an ancient super weapon to destroy the world or conquer it. Mystique sighed, it was never anything easy for them. But then again, anything worth protecting never was. She looked at her lover. If there was a slim chance of this killing her, then she would gladly walk through the gates of hell to save her. Give me a few minutes to prepare. He nodded and watched her leave. Naruto. It was Irene, he thought she was asleep. She must have heard their conversation. Promise me you'll protect her and yourself out there, the two of you are all I have, I couldn't bear the thought of losing either of you. I promise. Swear it, swear to me that the both of you will come back. Never had he seen her this shaken before. What's the matter? I can't see the paths this time. It was like that time I tried looking for those who had taken you and brought you here. I can't see them, and it scares me to think that nothing I say to you now will give you a better chance of survival. She must be talking about the spear. It made sense why she couldn't get a read on it, it was something that shouldn't even exist on the mortal plane of things. Especially if what the legends about it were true. This was just something her powers couldn't comprehend for her, and it scared her. He put his hand under her chin. I can't tell you not to worry, since you most likely will. But I promise you, I swear to you, we will come back. And don't worry about the bastards who kidnapped me, I'll find out a way to get back at them. You just help me and Mystique with the things going on with the here and now. Okay. Okay. Good. He kissed her on the forehead. He left the room and went to gather any last-minute things he would need. Berlin, Germany. After arriving back on German soil after a few hours on a plane, he felt it. He didn't have to be a censor not to. Power in its rawest, purest form was permeating the air of the city, it was like a beacon, calling everyone. Even his companion, who couldn't sense anything, felt it on her skin. They needed to move, and fast. Hopping from building to building, Naruto made faster time with a better view of things, while Mystique stayed on the ground. She had changed into her soldier persona on the ride over, the place they were going to be fighting at was open space, enough places for prying eyes to hide. Humming to a halt, Naruto surveyed the area for any other threats, aside from the one in front of him. The building he was looking at was an amazing piece of craftsmanship, it was the Reichstag building, it was ruined though by the cackling of a demented fool. There he was, standing right in front of the building. Such was the man's arrogance. Ha 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 ha. With this weapon, I will be unstoppable. Continuing to listen to the little rat prattle on, he turned his attention to the two men who were kneeling in front of Adolf. One was in all greens and red with a cape, the other wore a reddish-orange shirt with some blue pants, along with a metal-looking hat with two wings on it. Naruto, do you read me? Over. Go ahead. How are we going to do this? He didn't respond right away. His eyes scanned over the spear, it was faint, but he knew there was something there. A barely noticeable barrier of some kind surrounded the weapon, and hence Hitler. He didn't know what touching it would do to him or anyone else for that matter, he needed to test its defenses. I'm going to test the spear's defenses around Hitler, once I do though, he's going to know there is someone else here. When he does, I'm going to hit him hard and fast, when I do I want you to grab the two captives and release them. If they can help us, then our chances for success rise. Very well then, don't get yourself killed. He could hear the concern in her voice, even if she would deny it later on. Reaching into another of his pouches, he produced some senbon needles and proceeded to lace them with a paralysis drug. Granted, his mission was to kill the man, but if he could capture him alive, then not only could they end the war, but even gain information on his forces. And if there was one thing he was good at, it was getting info. He threw the needles with pinpoint precision and wasn't surprised by what he saw next, the senbon just seemed to get erased from existence when they came into contact with the barrier. Hitler noticed the small discrepancy as well. Standing up from his position, he gathered his chakra, weaved his seals, intoned the technique and fired. Pain. Riken Kan Ojutsu Dragon Flame Release Song Technique. 3 huge fireballs in the shape of dragon heads were screaming straight for the leader of Nazi Germany. The first one rammed right into the barrier, the other grazed it, but soon slammed into the building in the back, the last one had completely missed its mark, veering off course. Mystique knew that was her cue, and she rushed her bulky frame as the soldier over to the two captured men. She released their binds. Thank you. My name is irrelevant and save your thanks for later, like after we get out of this. The trio on the ground got into their fighting stances as they heard the laughter coming from the man who was engulfed in fire. Foolish. He bellowed, clearing the inferno. Even your strange magics cannot harm me. For your idiotic actions, I sentence all of you to death. Raising the spear so the point was above his head, he brought it down. A powerful wave of power washed over everyone in the area. What had he just done? Naruto suddenly looked up, tears in the sky began to open all around them, and it was through them that he had caught sight of them. A gaggle of heavenly females had descended onto their plane of existence. But they were unlike what he had heard people describe as angels. They had no wings on their backs nor any peaceful or smiling expressions. Instead their eyes were filled with fire, their smiles viscous, they wore armor, held axes, swords, spears, and shields. They were here to serve he who had summoned them, they were here for blood. "Come to me my Valkyries. Destroy my enemies," commanded Hitler. He had never heard of the word Valkyrie, but from what he could see of them, he knew they were very strong. Page Bunshin no Jutsu. Multiple clones appeared, they knew their orders, they began their siege. While they were busy trying to overwhelm the new threats, he would go for the head man. Unfortunately, he was being guarded by 6 of the women, getting close to him would be very difficult. Inagi no Mai Dance of the Willows. Sharpened bones began to protrude from various parts of his body, those who had seen it were either awed or disgusted by the act. The Kagaya clan member didn't care, he went on the offensive. He ducked a swipe from his sword and swung the bone sword on his palm, he was met with resistance in the form of a shield. He slashed with his other palm, cutting right through it. Whatever the shield had been made of, it couldn't withstand his bones. The blade swung at his head which he blocked with another bone did withstand. Whatever type of metal they used for the shield isn't as strong as the type they used for this blade. He kicked the Valkyrie in the midsection, doubling her over, and then drove his sharpened knee into her shoulder, piercing her flesh and coming out her back. She fell to the floor. Moving away from this one, he went to the next one, parrying each strike while simultaneously slashing at their legs. He was making no headway, there were just too many blocking his path. The man was walking away with a calm expression. "We have to stop him," cried out one of the former captives. He looked at them, and now he was glad he had chosen to release them. One of them was little more than a blur, his eyes could see him perfectly, but his own body would be hard-pressed to react to him. He was knocking them down as fast as they could get up. The other one was even more impressive, for one thing he was flying, the other was the giant green construct that formed from his hand into a fist, crushing all beneath it. "What does he have planned?" questioned Naruto, calling back. "He told us he's planning on bombing the White House and killing the president. That indeed is serious." He picked up his speed, however, it seemed he wouldn't make it in time, even with all those he would cut down. They needed more help. It came and the only reason he knew it came was because of the feeling of it or whatever it was entering the area. Whatever it was gave off the same feeling as the spear, it was something ancient. Looking up, he spotted whatever it was, it had the form of a man, his skin was all white, he wore green shorts, and a cape with hood attached covered his head and shoulders. The man, being, or whatever he was raining hell down upon their enemies with a vengeance. Seeing that the horde of Valkyrie was being taken care of, he went in search of the leader. What he found made him frown, the man was nowhere to be seen. Even with the lessening amount of Valkyrie warriors, whom vanished after getting defeated, he could still not locate him. The Valkyries must be helping to transport him. It was the only thing that made sense. The ground forces had been taken care of, he regrouped with the rest. "We need to leave, Germany is planning a naval attack on Britain. They are only a few hours out from the shorelines," spoke the newest member of their pseudo-team. This grabbed the immediate attention of both Naruto and Mystique, they needed to return home, and fast. This to them took priority over the thing going on with America, that wasn't their problem. "Come, I can transport all of us there faster," stated the green uniformed man. Seeing no other choice, both agents of Britain accepted. As the odd group of 5 made their way back to Britain, one of them decided to try and break the tension as they passed city after city. "Man, those were some sweet moves the 2 of you pulled out there. Name's Jay Garrick, but you can call me the Flash." Jay was a relatively young-looking man, but you could see the gray forming on his hair. The only other thing about his clothes that he had missed was the yellow bolt in the center of his shirt. "Since he started, it's nice to meet you 2 as well. My name is Alan Scott, but you can both call me the Green Lantern." The blonde could see the same things about Alan that he had seen in Jay. Only with a little less gray in his hair. Both he and Mystique looked to the last man who was flying a few feet away from them. "You mortals may call me the Spectre." Ignore his drama queen attitude, "Who are you guys?" asked Alan. "Pajebmshai, but you can call me Ache." He shook hands with them. No point in giving them his first name, even though they had been as forthcoming. The rest turned to Mystique. "I have no name, I am just the unknown soldier who fights for what's right," she said in her deep man voice. The trio of the JSA each raised an eyebrow at the answer, they shrugged. If he didn't want to say then it was his choice. "How much farther?" Mystique pressed. "Not much longer now, we'll meet up with our teammates, stop the naval attack, and then go for the bomber," said Jay. Naruto had a feeling it wouldn't be that easy. "I'm afraid it won't be as simple as that." "Why?" "Because you have to factor in the fact that the Valkyrie he has with him are moving him far faster than a plane. By the time you finish helping with the naval attack, it'll be too late for you to stop the bombing." All of them noticed how he said you and not them in his earlier statement, but decided to ignore it. "Then what do you propose?" This time it was Jay who spoke. We split up, those of you who can travel faster will go to America, while the rest of us remain behind to deal with the attack and defend Britain. The trio thought of the idea, it was solid. Very well then. The three of us will travel to America with a few others to stop this threat. We will leave a few of our own to help you. Naruto wanted to say he didn't really need their help, but it wouldn't do good to burn bridges. Thank you. After getting dropped off on a cliff that overlooked the ocean, his eyes narrowed. He spotted around 6 naval ships on the horizon. He ignored most of the greetings that the other JSA members were trying on him, but there was one that just demanded his attention. She was absolutely breathtaking, stunning raven-haired locks flowing in the wind, perfect round breasts and full backside, full lips, and a pair of piercing blue eyes. A pair of eyes that showed no fear, only courage. Sword in one hand, shield in the other. She was a warrior through and through. He just had to know who this woman was before the battle began and he lost his chance. Hello. He greeted. Greetings warrior, I am to understand from my teammates that we are to fight side by side today. You are correct, you look a very strong and capable warrior as well. May I know the name of the warrior who I fight with today? My name is Hippolyta, but for the duration of this battle, you may call me Wonder Woman. She certainly is a wonder. It is a pleasure to meet you Hippolyta, you may call me Kajubmshai. Or you may call me by my birth name, Naruto. Mystique was pissed, after she had spent a few seconds trying to find the blonde idiot, she sees him talking to some MILF, and then he goes out and gives his name, just like that. What had taken her a year and a half through life and death missions to learn, she learned in seconds. What made her so special? It is a strange sounding name on my tongue, but I shall be sure to remember it. Fight well today, Kajubmshai. She said as she hit her shield. You as well. Turning away from her retreating derriere, he came face to face with a pair of angry yellow eyes. How he could even see them behind so much face tape was beyond him, but the fact remained, he knew she was mad about something. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing. She pouted and crossed her arms over her broad chest. The image of a full-grown man doing it was very disturbing. Doesn't seem like nothing. Look, just leave me alone and focus. A few people had to cover their ears due to their enhanced hearing, Naruto had lessened the chakra going to his ears. The large guns had fired off a shell towards their position, it never reached as those next to him proved they did indeed have power. It exploded in midair. However, even with their power, it looked like none of them had anything with some range, which meant he would need to do something. Figuring it was better to show one of his abilities than allow the Nazis to blow chunks into the land or the cities, he stepped forward. He flew through his hand seals and began to manipulate the large body of water in front of him. He was going to put a technique he had copied during the Chunin exams to good use. Suiton. Shuriken no Jutsu Water Dragon Bullet Technique. Since water wasn't one of his natural affinities, he had to put more control and chakra into the technique. Everyone watching stepped back in fear and awe, before them stood the largest dragon any of them had ever seen, its red eyes looking at each of them. It easily dwarfed the battleships. Great Hera. You can summon a Hydra to do battle for you? Questioned Hippolyta, never seen anything like this back on the island. Antokna concentrating. He responded. Swiftly moving his hands, he guided his monstrosity towards their enemies, and everyone watched as the beast with red eyes tore through ship after ship like they were wet paper. Those with enhanced hearing could hear the wails from the sailors. If the giant dragon made of water didn't kill them instantly, then the shark smelling the blood in the water would. Simply magnificent. You are a true warrior. Yelled Hippolyta. Mystique on the other hand couldn't stop her mouth from hanging open, she had never seen him do something like this before. It had always been fire manipulation, this certainly made more of a case for him being a mutant like her. Especially after the whole thing with him using his bones, the only other person she had seen do that or close to it was Logan. Thank you. He thanked the woman for her praise. Wonder Woman, come, we must make haste back to America to help the others. Their job here was done, it was time to head back home and help their own country. Will you come with us? She asked him, completely ignoring Mystique. I'm sorry, but my duty to my home comes first. I'm sure you can understand that. Hippolyta nodded her head sadly. I do understand. I at times wish to return home, but I must first pay for my sins. Not sure what she meant by that, he watched as she turned around ready to depart. Wait. He called out to her. Yes. She responded. When this war is over or when you feel you have time, I would like to see you again and perhaps do something. She understood where he was coming from, she too wanted to see him again. Hippolyta wanted to have a spar with him, which is what he meant when he said he wanted to do something with her. I would very much like that till we meet again, Naruto. She waved goodbye to him as she left. Till we meet again, Hippolyta. Mystique cleared her throat. Now what's the matter? Till we meet again, Hippolyta. She mocked. Please, could you sound any more desperate? There's nothing wrong with a little companionship, you should know that. Whatever, let's just get out of here. Agreed, let's go home and give Irene and Winston the news. While they had failed the mission of killing Hitler or taking the spear, they had stopped one part of his plan, the other was up to the JSA. They had even freed the two members and were now on good terms with them and their group. Things were looking up, plus, he may have gained some insight as to why his ocular powers weren't working at the moment, and it had to do with those Valkyrie. Meanwhile, where are they? The lone woman was searching high and low for her sisters, one moment they had been there, the next they were gone, just vanished. This woman was Brunhild, or better known as Valkyrie of Asgard, leader of the Valkyrier, a group who chooses which slain will walk the halls of Valhalla. She stood at 6'3", 475 pounds, but this did not diminish the femininity of the goddess. Locks as bright as the sun sat atop her head while her ocean blue eyes radiated power. The loose-fitting tunic and tight pants was her ensemble, along with a dagger the size of her forearm and a greatsword strapped to her back. I need to locate them, we need to travel to Midgard to bring back any brave warriors who have fallen in battle. Maybe the Allfather will know where they are. Deciding that her search had yielded little to no results, she went to see the leader of the Asgardian gods. Before her stood the Sky Father of the Norse pantheon, Odin Borson. She was on one knee. Allfather, I cannot locate my sisters in arms. I seek your guidance in this matter. Odin cut an imposing figure at 6'9", but even sitting down he seemed much bigger. His armor shined in all its glory with his legendary spear Gungnir Spear of Heaven by his side. His lone eye peered down onto one of his finest warriors. Rise Brunhild, I know where the warriors be, they be on Midgard. He said, stroking his beard. Why would they be there without me? They be summoned by an ancient weapon that no mortal should ever wield. A weapon? Yes, a weapon that should not exist on that plane. I am giving you an assignment, I want you to travel down to Midgard and retrieve this weapon, so we may lock it up in our vault. Fret not of your duties, when you sisters return they shall resume. I need you elsewhere, will you do this for me, Brunhild? Of course, I shall depart from Midgard with haste. End of chapter 2. Berlin, Germany, 1941. By Odin's blood. Valkyrie had departed Asgard with haste at the Allfather's instruction and had landed down in Midgard a few days ago. Having had some semblance of where to begin her search, she had asked Heimdall, the all-seeing and all-hearing guardian sentry of the Bifrost, to send her here. She would have refused any offer of assistance from the Guardian to locate that which she seeks, she wanted to do this alone, this was her responsibility. But imagine her surprise when he could not see it. Whatever it was she was out looking for, it was powerful enough to block the seer of the Rainbow Bridge. Perhaps with her success of this quest, it would draw the attention of a certain blonde Asgardian. Such thoughts and fancies could wait, however, she needed to focus on her task at hand. Currently, she was investigating the last known area where the energy spike had been felt. Even without said object being in the area, she could feel the residue it had left behind, it was faint, but it was there. She had no idea how time functioned when one traveled from Asgard to Midgard, so she needed to be quick and make sure she followed the trail before it faded. However, there was something else in the area. Something she had encountered before, yet it felt different, almost alien. Isis, that chakra. She knew what chakra felt like, she had been around the Hindu pantheon before and seen mortals practice it for medicinal purposes. This felt the same, yet it wasn't. It was almost alien-like. Unfortunately, finding out what made this different was not her current objective, it would have to wait, no matter how interested she was in its discovery. Being a goddess who has lived many lifetimes could be a bit of a bore at times, so seeing something new was exciting for her. It got her blood pumping and her heart racing. She made a mental note to inform Odin of this when she returned and continued her search. Weapons were scattered all across the ground of the area. Some were even next to the partially burned down building that was caught in the crossfire. The Reichstag building. She read aloud from the somewhat legible plaque that had survived. Not really caring enough about it, she shrugged and moved on. As she kept looking around, a certain question had been plaguing her mind. Just what happened to my sisters? Knowing they had been summoned was not a query, they had lost, that much was clear as the signs of battle were everywhere. It was who they had lost to. Just who could have done this to them? Last she checked, Midgard had no substantial warriors to their name, but then again, the last time she was here was when the space gods had arrived. She was but a girl then. Perhaps she was a bit out of touch in the situation, she would need more knowledge. Or, it could have been the person who had used the mysterious form of chakra who had done this. It certainly was something to think about. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted something. Taking a few steps over to the object of interest, what she found was odd, so odd in fact she blinked a few times to make sure she wasn't seeing things. It was a blade, of that there was no dispute. It was unlike anything she had ever come across in her lifetime. Sure, she had seen bone weapons before, but all of them were always crude in design and never this sophisticated. And judging by the way it bended and didn't break when she applied her strength, it was safe to assume the bone was extremely dense. Clearly, this weapon had been one of the causes for the downfall of her sisters, but what escaped her was how a blade made of bone could hurt an Asgardian, let alone slay one. Upon a closer inspection, she noticed that the bone itself was coated in that strange chakra as well. She got an idea. Arg. She decided to see if it could hurt her and possibly gain some insight. She never said it was a good idea. It did, however, prove something to her. It was either the properties in the bone or the chakra around it that made it dangerous. And if this small piece hurt her, then it was cause enough for action. The possibility of the person who could wield these powers falling into enemy hands was too great a risk she could not afford to take. A new objective was just added. She now had a side quest. Despite bringing down the wrath of the All-Father onto her for taking another quest, she had to do this. It was for the good of Asgard. Plus, deep down in the pit of her stomach, she knew that the chakra and the bone blade were connected to one another. It would only be a matter of time until she uncovered their locations. However, despite her unwavering determination to see this to the end, a sinking feeling was forming in her head. Looking at the blade in hand, someone with a great amount of skill had wielded the blade in combat against her sisters and won. That mortal or whomever was running around unchecked, who knew what his or her plans were or if they knew about Asgard. Would they attack if they did? Stop. Valkyrie slapped herself a few times. Paranoia had started to sink its jaws into her head. She would not let fear itself rule or guide her this day. However, the fact did remain, this person was out there, she needed to locate them, see if they were friend or foe. Seeing that she could learn no more from this place, she strapped one of the bone blades onto her, a part of her exposed eye, right next to a dagger. The other she had found lying a few feet away from the first, had been placed in a small pocket realm. Adjusting the axe on her waist and the greatsword on her back, she tightened the laces on her boots and the armor around her chest. The last thing she did was loosen up the black leader that hugged her body, exposing all of her womanly curves. Sending back the weapons of her fallen sisters back to Asgard, a large feral smile appeared on her face. This is going to be fun. She was off in search of the weapon and person of interest. It had been long since she had played role of a seeker while her prey hides. Meanwhile, Madripoor. The lone figure watching over the slums of the dirtied streets suddenly felt a shiver course through his body. It made his hair stand up, but the feeling soon vanished as suddenly as it came. What the hell was that? The figure looked around warily. Had he been spotted? Seeing no one or a presence, he shrugged his shoulders. It was probably Mystique talking behind my back again. Naruto shook his head. He couldn't afford to think about anything else but what was in front of him. The mission he was currently on was an off-the-records one, a Black Ops mission. No one could know he was there, especially those who inhabited the island he was on. Madripoor. Its official name was the Principality of Madripoor. An island that was once home to pirates, now gave shelter to a new breed of scum. None of the governments wanted a third side entering this war, and while Madripoor was small by comparison to other countries, its resources weren't. The island was a place for the very rich and the very poor. It holds the title of the business capital of the Pacific Rim, nor does it allow other countries to extradite its criminals. It was very for him to see why. Some criminals held more value than others. It was as simple and straightforward as that. Countries wanting back certain people usually meant that person or persons knew something about said country that they wanted back at all costs. If some dirty little secret got out about a major power in the world, then it could change the balance of power away from them and to another less favorable, more controlled area. But he wasn't here to extract someone or information. If the island had moved against them, it would have been a different story. No, he was here for something else. A few days ago, the code breakers had deciphered a message from Nazi Germany to the island of Madripoor. A secret meeting between two parties was going down. Information suggested a high-ranking Nazi official would be present to deal with the shadow group. It was happening in a few hours. Unfortunately, he wasn't doing this one solo, no matter how much he protested. Since Britain was the first to decode it, they decided to try and see if they could get an alliance with America and Canada by offering them spots on this mission. He didn't see the point. This was a hush-hush mission. If the other countries participating denied ever being there, Britain could do nothing about it and they wouldn't get an alliance regardless. It just didn't make sense to him why the higher-ups wanted it like this. He sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Hopefully my teammates arrive sometime before the year is out and it's 1942. Naruto had his back leaning on a wall with his head down when suddenly his eyes shot open, chakra swirling in his eyes as they transformed. His ears had caught the subtle movement and his eyes easily spotted two shadowy figures. Sharpened bones slowly began to protrude from his palm, waiting to see if the two were friendlies or two more bodies to die in this god-forsaken island. One of the figures was short and stocky, the other was tall, a bit than even himself. As his eyes studied how they approached, he didn't deem them too much of a threat to him, but it always paid to be safe than sorry. As the two reached a piece of the roof that was being illuminated by the moon, did he finally see just who he was working with. 2 men was all the 2 countries had sent, but they would be enough, that much he knew. There were 2 different reactions when he himself stepped into the light. The short one seemed to have known he was there, while the taller one reacted by pulling his gun out. The blonde ignored the barrel aimed at his head. "It's good to see you again, Logan." Naruto greeted the short Canadian with a handshake and a nod. "You as well, Cage," grunted the shortest member of the group. "I sniffed you out the moment we got in the area." Naruto turned to the man accompanying the hairy man. He knew this man as well, not personally no, but he knew of him, the whole world did. It was the golden boy of the American people. Captain America. To the blonde Uchiha he certainly fit the bill when it came to his name and presence. Red, white and blue were the color scheme chosen for the man, albeit dark shades of the colors. A semi-large white star emblazoned on his chest while a large white A and 2 wings sat atop his blue helmet. The large 3-pointed shield with the stars and stripes was the only other thing of significance on the man. While the colors weren't eye-catching, this was still supposed to be a covert job. Why would the man wear something like that? While Naruto was busy scrutinizing every detail he could see on the captain, said man was doing the same to him. His instincts had not died down the slightest since they had arrived on the island, and they weren't coming down anytime soon, not with this man in front of him. Whatever it was he was feeling, the super soldier serum only enhanced it, he just didn't feel comfortable around this man. It wasn't the mask or the assortment of various looking weapons that he could see. It was his sheer presence that did it, it was like he was looking at another super soldier, a man who could do so many incredible things like himself. Only difference between them. He was still a rookie while the man in front of him was a veteran in the usage of his gifts. Still, just because the man in front of him was intimidating didn't mean he would back down, he had done enough of that back home. He couldn't make out much of the actual appearance with the mask on, but he could see he was a blonde like himself and just a head shorter too. The mask reminded him of a fox while the vest he wore was white, along with the shin and arm guards. Everything else was either black or gray. However, the most striking feature on the man were his eyes. His enhanced vision picked up shades of crimson with tiny black dots, it was really quite a sight. Blondes usually had blue eyes. Naruto could have easily placed an illusion on the man, but chose not to, there was no point to right now. They needed to work together, lest he somehow finds out something is wrong and blames him. "If you 2 ladies want more time staring at each other, I can leave. Or we can get our mission underway." Logan smirked, that it jostled them. "Put the gun down, Cap, we're supposed to work together here." He knew the man wouldn't have shot and even if he did, it probably wouldn't have hit. The American-themed soldier kept his gun trained for a moment longer before holstering. What Logan had said was true, they were supposed to work together, him doing what he did could have left a bad impression on the man and thus jeopardized the mission. "I apologize for my display, but I don't know you that well, I hope you understand." He decided to apologize while being truthful on the matter. It hadn't steered him wrong yet. And it didn't here. "No need." Naruto waved him off. "I commend you for it in fact. We are in war at the moment, Captain, trust isn't something someone can earn right away. It must be earned, don't you agree?" Hap was looking at the man in a new light and agreeing with him. "I agree, trust is earned. And we can start by introducing ourselves to each other." "I already know both of you, so it's just the 2 of you who don't know each other," stated Logan. "Stephen Rogers, or as the world calls me, Captain America. You'll never meet a more honest and loyal man in the world more than me." Logan snorted. "What he says is true, I couldn't smell any deceit on him when he gave me the same talk." Naruto could tell he was telling the truth, he was studying how the man's body was reacting when he said those words. There really was no ill intent. Was this man just that pure-hearted in his ideals or just that naive about the world? This was a good opportune time to make some bridges and gain some allies. He didn't know much about Logan, but he knew that Rogers would be at the forefront of America in the future. This was too good a chance. "My name is Kajabmshai while on missions, but you 2 can call me Naruto Namikaze." "It's nice to meet you, Naruto," greeted Steve with a sturdy handshake. Logan nodded his head. He didn't really care why the man had decided to give his name now of all times and not back then when they first met. And judging by the foreign-sounding name, it was guaranteed that Naruto had some Asian descent in him, perhaps even Japanese. That just made him all the more interesting to the Canadian. Maybe they could both go one day and share a cup of sake. "You as well, Steve. Now that introductions are over, why don't we get this mission started?" Lowtown. Lowtown, it was exactly what its name meant, the social inequity of Madripoor was really showing its ugly side here. Its crime-ridden streets were flooded with beggars, criminals of the worst kind, and the dying. It was an unfortunate fate for those who were caught in between everything the island represented. They would have liked to help or drop a bomb on the place, but it wasn't why they were there for. The trio stuck to the roofs while blending into the shadows for cover. "So, what do we know about the Nazis who are going to be at the meeting?" "No clue, just go in and take him out," answered Logan in his usual way. Naruto shook his head as well, he had no idea who was going to be there. "Okay, what about the other group?" questioned Rogers. Even more of a mystery this time, the blonde fox-masked warrior answered. Before either the American or Canadian could open their mouths to ask a question, they were hushed. "Sheets up, we're here." Humming to a stop, the trio crouched down and peered over the ledge of the building they stopped at. It was instantaneous, they knew the two Nazis. Baron von Strucker, a man Naruto and Logan have run into in the past, while the captain only knew of him in report so far. The other man was even more of a danger, not in any way physically but mentally. His name is Arthur Axmann, leader of the Hitler Youth Movement, a man who poisons the minds of children, converting them to Nazism. By the time the children whom he's poisoned were adults, the Nazis would have an abundance of soldiers ready to die for the cause. However, what they did not expect was the third person standing in front of the Germans. It was a child, a girl, no older than 3, red auburn hair, green eyes, snow-white skin, a stoic look on her face with a red overcoat over her frame. She was either under the influence of something they had given her or she didn't care what was going on around her. Off to his right, he heard the small Canadian growl. "What's the matter?" His eyes followed the line of sight Logan was looking at. They were glaring holes at the other group. His own eyes narrowed as well. He didn't know them personally, he was sure of that, but there was something familiar about them. "That other group, I've run into them a few times before. They're annoying pests." "Who are they?" Steve voiced the question. "Have either of you heard of the Hand?" Naruto remained quiet, his eyes never leaving the red-clothed group. "Can't say that I have," responded the blonde super soldier. "They're a ninja clan that usually operates in Japan. Though I don't know what they're here for." "Ninja?" Naruto looked at them even closer now. "Ninja?" questioned Cap, trying to wrap his head around such a thing. "Yeah, just like our friend here. They even use a bunch of mystical mumbo-jumbo to help them fight." Steve's head immediately shot towards their other teammate, but was waved off. "Just because we both claim the mantle of shinobi does not mean we operate in the same way," said Naruto, not really wanting to discuss this any further. He nodded to his teammate and they all hushed up, the men at the bottom were beginning to talk once more. "Do we have an accord? You get the girl, train her as you wish to be your master assassin or whatever fancies you, and we get your ninja in our ranks for this war," spoke Arthur. "So they kidnapped the girl just so they could train her?" He looked at the emotionless girl. "She must be very gifted to have gained such interest from these people." We will take young Natalia Romanova and mold her as one of our own. We will send over our ninja in a matter of days." A huge explosion rocked the ground they were standing on. Naruto watched as a man with black hair and a bristling mustache stormed the meeting, guns blazing. Decked out in armor from head to toe, the man fired his weapons with pinpoint accuracy. All of them watched as the ninja guards who were hit either dropped dead or turned into a mist, another form of death they supposed. The Nazis just died the same way as regular humans. "What are we waiting for? Let's get down there before he kills them all." Logan discarded their secrecy and bull rushed into a group of Nazis. "I've got Strucker." Rogers ran off before Naruto could protest. "Whatever, let's go and save that kid." Jumping off the same ledge as the two men before him, he landed and whipped out 2 bone blades and began to kill relentlessly. He ducked under a strike and sliced off a leg, spun around another and slashed at their open back, leapt over one going low and beheaded them, clean off their shoulders. It was like a dance to those watching, the way he moved was fluid and deadly. He blocked a strike with his forearm and stabbed the man in the chest 5 times. He kicked him away into a group who thought bull rushing him would be a good course of action. They were wrong. Weaving his hand seals, he gathered his chakra and fired. Ton. Kazakiri no Jutsu wind cutter technique. A thin veil of wind coated his forearms and he swiped his arms towards the oncoming ninja. A few of them didn't react in time, others just in time to jump in the air, leaving themselves vulnerable. Sticking out his arms, he straightened them along with his fingers and fired. Sendan 10-finger drilling bullets. 10 bullets of bone hit the remaining ninja straight on in the head, drilling their way past the flesh, bone, brain, and out the back of the skull. They were dead before they hit the ground. He noticed that while death was all around, the little girl Natalia hadn't moved an inch, nor did she seem afraid. Looking around he spotted Logan killing men non-stop, left and right. Seeing that so few were left, he decided to seal this victory. Page Bunshin no Jutsu. Summoning more clones than what the remaining ninja or Nazis could handle, they were slowly being pushed back. Reason he had waited on using this technique was because of the guns being used, one bullet could dispel a clone, and with the rapid-fire weapons nowadays, the chances of his clones making it halfway was low. He still had a tactic he could use with his clones and those wielding guns, but he didn't want to use unless necessary. People when put under duress can think quickly on their feet. That was what made humans so dangerous. Killing some of the remaining stragglers or those who felt they could kill him, he walked over to the emotionless girl. Looking into her eyes he could see the faraway glazed look in them. She was definitely under something. About to use his ninjutsu to see if he could snap her out of it, perhaps even mind wipe her of this mess, he spotted a worm trying to escape. Well, what do we have here? Naruto looked down at Axeman. The man had of course played dead when his comrades started dying, one of his clones had caught the little man. Arthur glared hatefully at the man, but soon withered under the man's crimson eyes. Anger rose in him, he was one of the Führer most loyal, he would rather die than talk. You may kill me today, but as long as the Führer and those who believe in him exist, this war will never end. The Third Reich will live on forever. He screamed defiantly. Arthur. I did not raise you to speak such ways. Now apologize. Arthur wasn't seeing this, she couldn't be here. Mother. What are you doing here? Silly boy, I'm here to fight in the war, someone has to with such incompetent boys like you leading them. Her words stung deep, but the son pushed past them. No. What are you doing here, mother? Women should not fight in the war. Women bring life into the world, they do not take it. He begged for her to leave, pleaded. He did not want to see his mother take a life. So you would allow boys to die for their country, but not women who have as much right as any to fight if they so wish. She replied, glaring at him. Why? Why is this happening? Arthur cried. There, little Arthur. She said in a soothing voice, calming him down before he heard a click. A gun barrel was pointed right at him. Wah. Bang. Arthur was choking on his blood, his own mother had shot him in the neck. His body wasn't responding to him, he couldn't move his hands to stop the bleeding. He looked up to his mother and began to cry once more. She was looking down on him with a cruel sneer that did not belong on her face. Goodbye son, I hope you rot in hell. Bang. Naruto had watched the whole thing apathetically and watched as the man died from blood loss, as his throat had been slit. Who would have believed that this man had such thoughts? He loved his mother and did not want women fighting. Sadly, a few good remaining traits did not redeem him in the eyes of Naruto. Well Arthur, you were certainly right, you did die today. He told the corpse. But you're wrong about the other things. You see, me and my associates are going to find your coward of a leader and then guess what we're going to do next? Go ahead, guess. Nothing was said. We're gonna kill him and every last one of his little friends. Get comfy since more of your friends are going to be joining you in hell soon enough. He noticed that Logan had finished up. What the heck did you do to him? Logan saw the face the man made in death. A part of it was due to the slash at his neck, the other he couldn't tell. I just showed him a little nightmare, that's all. But you mind explaining what those are? He pointed to the claws made of bone sticking out of his knuckles. They were eerily similar to his own. Logan kissed them. These babies are my tools for gutting anyone who stands in my way. Naruto opened his mouth to ask a question, but covered his nose, Logan followed suit. They looked over to what the smell was, and it was Arthur's body, it had excreted. Ugh, disgusting. Logan agreed with the sentiment. They both watched as the body twitched every now and then. You gonna do something about this? Asked Logan. How annoying. Muttered the blonde ninja. Get rid of the body and stop him from twitching, it's really weird looking. He ordered his clone. It complied. The clone stomped its foot down on the head, crushing the brain and thus stopping it from sending signals to the body. He then kicked the body away from them and then dispelled. Natalia. Both he and Logan turned around to see the man who had rushed in and started the fight come running in for the girl. He began to check her for any sign of an injury and discarded his helmet to get a better view of her. Who are you? Naruto asked the man in his native tongue. Those lessons he learned were starting to pay off. How did you know I was from the Soviet Union? Asked the unknown man. I heard your language when you called out her name. He pointed out. I see, that makes sense. Anyways, I thank you for your timely assistance in terminating these unsavory pests. My name is Ivan Petrovich, I've been hired by this girl's mother to bring her back. So you're a mercenary? Asked Logan, he knew a bit of the language. Aye. The trio talked for a few more minutes, waiting on the captain to return, but Ivan could not wait any longer. He needed to leave, lest his boat leave without him or they get captured. I'm sorry my friends, but I must get this child back to her mother. Perhaps we will meet once more in the future. He bid them farewell. They both watched him leave, he was gone within a few seconds. Well, that's too bad, Rogers would have liked him. Said Naruto, Logan agreed with him on that. Both of them were upright kinda guys. So unlike him and the blonde next to him. You got that right. Let's go and see if we can find him, he should have been back already. Don't bother. A voice called out. Both turned around to see the captain looking a little worse for wear. A few cuts and tears here and there but nothing substantial. Had Strucker really given him that hard of a time? And why didn't either of them pick up his scent? What happened? The intel we had on Strucker is useless. Somehow, someway, the man came into superhuman abilities of his own. Now that did sound like faulty intel. Last time both Naruto and Logan had seen him he didn't use them or he didn't show them if he did have them. It was also strange, the more I fought him, the weaker I felt myself becoming. Can you elaborate a bit more? Now Steve smirked, apparently he had more to tell. The man began to monologue and explained how he was superior than me. He called it the Deathspur virus. Maybe that's why I couldn't pick him up. Maybe he was covered in the stuff. Thought Logan. I see. Did you kill him? Asked Naruto. Unfortunately no, as I said earlier, that virus caught me by surprise and he escaped. However, I was able to blind him permanently in his right eye. I threw my shield at him and one of the sharp ends damaged his eye. Naruto shrugged, at least it was something. At least you were able to cripple him. I say this mission was a success. We killed one high-ranking Nazi, injured another, killed their underlings, found out about a ninja clan, and we rescued the girl. They had filled Steve in on the parts he missed, minus Naruto leaving out the mind-torturing stuff. All in a day's work. Joked Logan. That it is Logan, that it is. Hey, how about we team up together? We did some good work here. Stated Rogers. So you trust me now? Questioned Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Do trust you to get the job done and to watch our backs. So in a way, I do trust you. Do you trust me? Naruto smiled. There really wasn't a reason for me not to. You're really honest and straightforward about things. If I can't trust you, then who can I trust? Then you both agree we should team up? Logan shook his head. No thanks Cap, I like working alone. He replied. Well it does sound tempting, I'm afraid I will decline as well. We did do good, but unless our group remains in the shadows, then you will not be able to be a part of anything. Naruto said looking at the American. America isn't a part of the war and if you, the golden boy, are seen killing Nazis when your government specifically said they weren't getting involved, then they will have no choice but to. The war would then spread its fires. Explained the blonde ninja. Yes, I didn't think that far ahead. Tell you what, if America ever joins the war front and you can get more members, look me up then, but until that time comes, I'll be seeing you too. Naruto vanished, leaving the remaining two men alone. Do you really want us on a team? Just because we work this time doesn't mean it would work again next time. Steven answered without a hint of hesitation in his voice. Yes, I want you both on a team with me. I have faith that this team will work out, I can feel it in my bones. We are meant to work together. Now and into the future, whatever it may hold. Naruto placed his hand over his mouth as he yawned and placed his head on a cushy seat, hoping to drift off to sleep soon. After he had left the area of Lowtown, he had hoped back onto his boat and back towards the plane that would take him home. He had disguised the plane and his boat with an illusion that would protect them and the pilot. He looked at his wrist to check his watch and see what time it currently was. Back in his other home, they had clocks, but he had never seen any this small, he had been shocked when he received it. He had thanked Irene and Mystique for the gift, he uses it regularly. It was nothing too fancy and was built for being outside. It gave him the month, day, year, and time. That was it, nothing else. It currently read. December 7, 1941 3:45 a.m. Judging by how long the ride back would take, he probably wouldn't get back home till around 10 or 11. The trip itself wasn't unusually long, but with so many forces at work out on the sea and the air itself, it was safer to err on the side of caution and take the scenic route home. Which means I can sleep a bit longer. He closed his eyes and left the soft hum of the propellers rock him to sleep. Nothing was going to happen while he was asleep. Apparently he was wrong. A lot of stuff could happen while someone slept for a few hours, like an attack on American soil. He had arrived back home and had hoped to catch some breakfast and then back off to bed once more, he wasn't that lucky. The first thing he had seen when entering the house was Winston running around like a chicken with its head cut off, he was spouting nonsense. After calming the man down and getting a proper explanation, he immediately went to the radio. It was being broadcast everywhere. The Empire of Japan had launched an offensive attack on Pearl Harbor. A small lagoon harbor on the island of Oahu, Hawaii, west of Honolulu. It was the headquarters of the United States Pacific Fleet, a deep-water naval base. America was completely blindsided by the sudden attack, sure they had fought a bit with Japan early on, before the war began when Japan was conquering most of Asia. But this was different, they had deliberately attacked on their own soil, lost lives on that same soil and in the waters, it was the worst attack in American history. It's very unfortunate at the loss of lives, but this will be the push that gives the president cause for action," stated Winston. He had already tried once to get him to act but did not prevail. Naruto didn't reply and just nodded. The old man was right, if this deliberate attack didn't get them to act, nothing would. Following day. December 8, 1941, 12:30 p.m. Winston had called everyone together into the living room and had them crowd around the radio to listen to the speech being given by the president. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation and, at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Naruto, Winston, Irene, Mystique, and everyone else was silently listening to the speech being given by the president. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense. But always will our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. His booming voice carrying throughout the hall. I believe that I interpret the will of Congress and of the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but we will make it very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger us. Hostilities exist. There is no blinking at the fact that our people, our territory, and our interests are in grave danger. He certainly knows how to give a speech, doesn't he? Stated Irene, the president was painting a picture for her. But he does. Winston agreed. He had thought as much when he had met the man. With the confidence in our armed forces, with the unbooting determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God. I ask that Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire. The broadcast was finished, they turned off the radio. Well, that certainly was something, said Naruto, not really knowing what to say. Indeed, he must begin to plan. He need to meet with President Roosevelt, with him on and America on our side, the Allies just may win this war. Mumbled Winston. I must leave post-haste. Naruto and the girls just watched a man scurry off to do what he needs to do. They went to prepare their things just in case they were going to be needed. December 13, 1941. She knew this was going to happen, she just knew it. It was the reason she had relocated from her current home to a small shop in Chinatown. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the American government began to round up anyone of Japanese descent into detention camps. They said it was to prove their loyalties, but she knew better. Ever since she had come into her psychic powers, she knew a lot of things, she could even influence a person to see things her way. She had been doing so when she had placed a subtle push in someone's mind whenever they came into her store. It's how she's been able to stay safe for the moment. She needed to leave the country, but she didn't want to do it alone and already had the perfect person in mind to help get her out. One of the people that had entered her shop really wasn't a person, at least not physically. This person had used some type of magic to disguise their appearance, but they couldn't disguise their mind, especially from her. The person who had came in was an Atlantean, his name was Morano. He had much hate on his mind for a single man in his home, she could use this. Morano, I want you to take me somewhere. Where? And what's your name anyways? I don't recall ever hearing it. In fact, I don't remember even meeting you. He was very confused. She waved him off. Don't be silly, you've known me for months already. You've just had much on your mind as of late, right? He was slowly nodding his head. Yes, you're right. He agreed with her. Good, I wish to see how Germany is this time of year. I hear their beaches and oceans are quite lovely. That and she felt the hate a few minds in the city were permeating. They were all headed to Germany. Perhaps they would even meet, who knows? Okay, but what was your name again? I don't go by that name anymore, that name was plain and boring. I will now be going by something new. You may refer to me as Lady Lotus, she declared. December 22, 1941, 5 a.m. Today was the day that two of the most powerful leaders in the world would meet. While the darkness of the morning still lingered and the cold air blew against them, Winston had boarded one of the Royal Navy submarines. He needed to get to America quickly, undetected and unharmed. Naruto had protested being left behind while Mystique was taken instead. The smug smirk she had given him didn't help his mood either. He was left behind for the purpose of being a quick strike force should anything suddenly come up. Winston was in good hands though, Mystique was well versed with armed and unarmed combat and her shape-shifting abilities would prove very useful. Eventually he relented, but only because he was able to send a few clones on board. That had brought a smile to his face when the smirk faded from Mystique's face. They would only last a few hours, but not long enough for the whole trip or the return. Call me if anything, Naruto told the older man. Winston snorted. And what would you do? How would you get there? Unless you can walk on water or dive 300 meters under the surface of the water, then you would not be fit for calling. Naruto just gave him a look that had him seriously contemplating the look. He shook his head, he didn't want to think of this. He had more important things anyways. Besides, it was preposterous, nobody could walk on water these days or dive that deep, right? Anyways, just be sure to hold down the fort while we're gone, said Winston. And don't try and funny business with Irene, shouted Mystique, shaking her fist in the air just as the hatch closed, sealing them inside. No promises. He said to no one in particular. He walked inside and decided to go and check on Irene, had to see how she was holding up. Meanwhile, New York City. I can't believe we lost them. Calm down. I can't calm down, Jim, the Nazis took him and who knows what they're doing to him. Jim Hammond, or better known as the Human Torch, tried to calm the young man next to him down. He wouldn't help anyone if he was panicking. You need to listen to me, calm down, there is no point in panicking about this. We just have to retrace their steps and we will find the doctor. I hope you're right, Jim. I hope you're right. I am, come on Toro. Toro, or Thomas Raymond, is the partner of the Human Torch. Together they stop crime and fight evil, such as the Nazis. Jim became Toro's legal guardian when both of his parents were killed in a train fire that was orchestrated by the villain, Asbestos Lady. I'm right behind you, Jim. Flame on. Toro burst into flames. Jim shook his head. I still see no reason why you must say that. All you have to do is think of it subconsciously and it happens. Hey, don't drag on the catchphrase. It's gonna catch on one of these days, just you wait and see. If you say so. The two then flew off to retrace the enemy's steps in hope of finding the doctor. The duo had located the good doctor, unfortunately, he was no longer among the living. When they had found him, he had just been shot after performing the operation that created Captain America on a Nazi. They were positive the now super soldier Nazi wouldn't prove too much of a problem for them, since he probably didn't take the full formula created years prior. They were wrong. After shooting Dr. Anderson, who had been involved in Operation Rebirth, the operation that created the captain, the superhuman Nazi destroyed the duo. The man, so enthralled by his new abilities, threw caution to the wind and gave them his name. Wilhelm Lohmer, as he now wanted to be called, Master Man. As he was about to dispose of them, Jim heard a bone-crushing sound. Managing to move his head, he spotted a familiar red, white, and blue-themed soldier. He blacked out soon after. Jim had begun to stir from the blackness. Ugh, what hit me again? A super-powered Nazi. Right. Jim looked up to see Steve, but was surprised to see two more people. Namor and Anna, King and Princess of Atlantis. Steve, seeing that Jim was looking at the two Atlanteans, he explained. They arrived an hour before you woke up. They're here to help us. The brother-sister duo nodded. What the captain says is correct, stated Namor. Anna went over to the downed teen and splashed him with water. You, help me. I'm drowning. Ignoring his sister and the boy, Namor continued. We will not sit idle while another nation tries to invade our home. Atlantis will stand by your side in this war. The blonde captain was elated when he heard this, having a people like the Atlanteans on their side with their numbers and naval weapons, it certainly was a boon. And even should they not fight on the oceans, they were formidable opponents on land as well. Thank you, my friends. Steve shook both of their hands. I know that together, we can accomplish anything. Even the mission I already received. Seeing the confused expressions on their faces, Rogers began to explain. Not too long ago, we decoded a transmission from Nazi Germany. They plan to launch an offensive attack on a submarine coming to America. The precious cargo inside is their goal. Before someone could ask a question, Toro interrupted. Whoa. Who's the hot guy? His teenage hormones were acting up in the presence of the blonde-haired woman with skin-tight pants and shirt. Anna snorted, please, as if I would be interested in a boy. I am looking for a warrior, a man. You may have had a shot had I not been a woman. Perhaps if I had been Aquagirl, but alas, it will never happen between you and me. Ouch. These were the thoughts of all the males in the room. What a way to be told no. Namor decided to try and console the distraught boy. Fret not, boy, greater and lesser men than you have tried to woo my sister. None have impressed her, and perhaps none ever will. So hold out hope none impress her so you may be victor at the end. The others just shook their heads. In a roundabout way, the King of the Seas just told Toro should he be the last man on Earth, then will his sister have none but him to look at. Steve decided to get this train back on track. Look people, the Prime Minister of Britain is on that sub and he's on his way here to meet with the President. This meeting could have the potential to change this war in our favor. We need to make sure he arrives safely. The others nodded, this was a very important meeting between two world leaders. Jim stood up, dusted himself off and looked at his friend. We await your orders, Captain. Naruto was rubbing his temples, he had just hung up the phone. He just knew something was going to happen, he should have tried harder to get on the trip with Winston. Two slender arms wrapped themselves around his neck. He inhaled her womanly as he kissed her arms. "Naruto, come back to bed," said Irene, pushing her breasts, erect and all onto his upper back, while his lower back felt her bush. "I want my heater and body pillow back." He groaned and sighed loudly. "I wish I could, I really do. But I just received a message from the decoders. An attack on Winston has been ordered." Old playfulness left Irene's voice, her other lover was in danger. "When?" "I'm not sure and I'm not willing to find out. I'm leaving now to meet them halfway." "You do know how far it is, right?" Naruto smiled at her. "You do know we have planes, right? We just follow its coordinates and then I do the rest from there." She playfully punched him in the chest, grabbed his hair and pulled him into a tight embrace. Their lips met and she forcefully pushed her tongue into his mouth, dominating him the entire time. They separated for air. That wasn't a goodbye kiss, it was something to look forward to when you come back with Mystique and Winston. He just nodded, dazed. Damn, if she's going to be like that. Then I don't mind being dominated by her. Leaving the naked woman on his bed, he got up and went to gather his equipment and see if he could find anyone crazy enough to take him. He had found someone. How much longer? Naruto had to yell over the loud engine noise from the small aircraft. As soon as he had left the estate, he looked for anyone who could fly him to where he needed to go. He had found someone, and she was very very beautiful. She had introduced herself as Zinda Blake. She was much shorter than him, but that didn't really matter to him, this woman just had this look about her. Long blonde hair, azure blue eyes, pink full lips, toned body, this woman was a fighter by nature. And the tight black form-fitting jumpsuit and weapons on her body also gave this impression. "Just a bit longer," yelled Zinda. He nodded. "I really have to thank you again for taking me up on such short notice." She waved him off. "Think nothing of it, this benefits both you and me." "How so?" "I take you where you need to go, and I gain more flying experience with a chance of seeing some combat. Hopefully we don't see any." "And why do you need experience, you seem to be a rather good pilot already?" he asked. She laughed out loud. "I plan on being the first woman to enter the ranks of the legendary Blackhawk Squadron. I want to be a fighter pilot, but I'm currently stationed in Britain and the Blackhawks are in America." She wasn't going to mention the fact that they didn't let women in, only men. She was going to prove them all wrong. "Ah. I see." He nodded. "How would you like to be my personal pilot, transporter and fighter alike?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, I want to be a part of the Blackhawks. Maybe once this war is over and I'm a part of them can you hire me out, but not right now. I can admire someone who goes at their goals with all they've got, hopefully I get the chance in the future." She grinned, she had to admire his persistent attitude in getting her. Who knows, maybe at some point they would meet in the future and she would work for him. After flying for over an hour and a half, Zinda spotted something surprising in the water. "Well, butter my butt and call me a biscuit. As tempting and delicious as that sounds, I think we should keep this professional Miss Blake until we find our targets. Don't you?" he said in humor. She decided to play along. "You're the boss, I would have flown this plane naked if you had wanted me to and put it on autopilot so we could butter me up. But if that's your answer. Are you serious?" Zinda rolled her eyes. "No, I'm not being serious. But maybe once we land and return back to Britain we could try it. It's a date." "I can't wait," she gave him a charming smile. "Anyways, what caught my attention was that." She pointed out into the ocean. Naruto looked over her shoulder and saw what she was pointing at, there was nothing but scattered remains of Nazi U-boats. The attack had been prevented by someone. Over there. Following her slender arm, he saw the sub. It had surfaced for some reason, he needed to get on it before it submerged again. With his gear already on his body, he gave Zinda a quick peck on the cheek and opened the sliding door. His chakra on the soles of his feet held him in place as the wind created a vacuum outside of the plane, sucking out everything it pulled. He jumped. "Wait. You don't have a parachute," she yelled in worry. He smirked, where he was going and what he could do, he didn't need a parachute. Gathering his chakra into his mouth, he launched his countermeasure to his free-falling. Dawn. DAITOPPA great, breakthrough. He blew a small gust of wind towards the surface of the water, slowing his descent. Flipping himself over so his feet would touch first, he landed and began making his way over to the sub. Zinda was gaping at the display she had just seen. Well, he certainly is a man of many talents. A smile formed on her lips. Now I really can't wait for our date. He was in. Being inside of a submarine was a little intimidating when it's your first time, nothing but tubes and electronics. And tons of switches or buttons, all of them different colors. He decided it was best if no one knew he was on board lest they don't recognize him, and this causes a stir. But he was going to have a talk with Winston about this though, if he could get inside, then so could another. Moving up above on the pipes with what little room there was, he followed them one way and was led to the front of the vessel. People were running around pushing button, flipping switches, barking orders, all of them trying to get the situation under control. "One of you, go and check on the Prime Minister and his guests." "Yes. Aye, sir." Naruto followed the officer as she led him directly to Winston's quarters. He would have been looking for a few minutes with all the twists and turns. Knock. Knock. "Mr. Prime Minister, sir, I just wanted to see if you or your guests needed anything." "No thank you, we're quite alright," responded Winston. The blonde watched as the officer replied and then left. He spotted a medium-sized vent just above the door and knew that was his way in. "I must thank you again, Captain. If not for you and the group's timely intervention, I may not have made it to America." "Think nothing of it, sir. If you getting to America will end this war sooner, then we will do all in our power to see that happen." "Thank you." He gave the group his thanks. "So, are you lot a group?" All of them seemed to look around to one another, but eventually it all landed on one man. "Yes, we are," stated Steve Rogers. Winston nodded his head. "What do you call yourselves? If I may ask." "We're not sure, sir. Coming up with a name wasn't at the top of our priorities. We just go where the world needs us." "So you are sanctioned by your countries?" Two of them nodded, but the others weren't as sure. They had just gone there without so much as the go-ahead from their government. "Your silence speaks volumes. Rest assured, I will speak about this when I meet Roosevelt. You people did a lot of good today, I want your group to continue to do that work. To me, you're more valuable than the other one." "What other one, sir?" "The JSA, they were officially sanctioned by your leader. Well, they protect America the most and other parts of the world, they are the light, they can only do so much. You however are the darkness, you can move around much more freely and do what must be done." "What are you suggesting?" "Captain, I worry about the threats that men in power like Hitler or Mussolini represent, but the things I worry about most are the threats we don't know about. The threats that hide in the shadows. The trouble with secret threats, of course, is finding them before they become problems." Everyone, even Naruto, was taking in his words. But in a world like this, that moves so fast and so ruthlessly where so many things can be turned into weapons, someone has to tackle this job. Someone has to stop mankind from destroying itself. Sir Steve was cut off. The Shadow Ops team, a team that goes where others dare not venture, crossing lines and getting things done. A team that fights the good fight knowing you're protecting the world even though nobody will ever know about it. You invade others, showing them that we are not afraid to fight back to stop the tyranny of the world, you're going to be the invaders. What do you say, Captain? "Sir, I don't know what to say. Just say yes, I guarantee you I can convince your leader of this, but we need the team together first before he can be convinced." Steve sighed. "We will need more members, perhaps some from the JSA perhaps." "No, this group needs to stay as is. This group represents more than just power, it shows the rest of the world that people from different countries and races can work together towards a common goal. Here we have 2 Atlanteans and 4 Americans. I would have invited the Canadian fellow, Logan, but he is rather hard to find." Understanding shone in all of their eyes, truly this group was multicultural. "Logan is indeed a hard man to find, but perhaps I will have better luck finding him. I also want to ask if you can offer me one of your people." "Say no more, my boy. I already have someone in mind to participate in this group. He will be a great addition to the team." "Who is it?" asked Anna. If the elderly man in front of her and the captain were speaking of the same person, then this person must be strong. Especially if the captain was asking for them personally. Everyone, minus Winston, jumped out of their shoes. Namer and Anna summoned weapons and water, while Steve and his associate pulled out guns. Jim and Toro each held flames in their palms. Once Steve saw who it was, he lowered his shield and gun. "Relax everyone, relax. This is the man I wanted on our team, everyone, this is Kajubmshai. I've only worked with him once, but I know I can trust him to watch my back. Plus, he is very strong and is very good at sneaking around, as just seen. Bucky, please holster your weapons." The young man who was with the captain followed suit eventually, putting his 2 guns away. His full name was James Buchanan Barnes, partner to Captain America. They all held different reactions to the sudden appearance and brief introduction. Jim trusted Steve, he put out his flame, Toro was a little wary around the man, but he soon followed suit. Naruto had seen the 2 youngest in the room, and seeing how one could wield flames like the adult and the other obeyed the captain, it was safe to say they were their partners. Maybe I should take on a partner or a protege. He shrugged his shoulders, it was something to think about. The last 2 to put their weapons or their guards down were the Atlanteans. Their instincts were more honed than their human counterparts, so they could not feel the power rolling off the man in front of them. They could feel it just swelling throughout his entire body, how he had not burst they did not know. Eventually they both put their weapons away. Namor saw this as an opportunity to gain a powerful ally for his country. He stepped up to the man. Namor Mackenzie, King of Atlantis. Everyone was stunned, they didn't know the Submariner had a last name. Namor, why didn't you tell us you had a surname? And why does your sister have a different one? Asked Steve, sounding hurt. I saw no reason to, and I just felt it was good manners as a king to introduce myself to a man who will become our teammate. And my sister is really my half-sister, we both had different mothers but the same father. I see. Anna Curry, Princess of Atlantis. She spoke in an even tone though on the inside she was shaking with excitement. Her body was shivering, never had she encountered such a person as this. He commanded your attention. Naruto stared at the hand and hesitated a bit. If the Atlantean was truly a king then it would only be right to reciprocate. One leader to another. It's okay, go ahead. Said Winston. The blonde sighed. No one outside of this room will speak what I am about to tell you. If someone asks you who I am, point them in my direction and I will decide it should they know my name. They all nodded. My name is Namikaze Naruto. He stated as he shook Namor's hand. Deciding since he already gave out the name he was going to use, he lifted up his mask for everyone to see. Anna's heart skipped a beat as she was drawn to his amazing blue eyes and golden hair. What? Everyone looked to see who the outburst came from. Hello, Mystique. They all watched as a blue woman stepped out of the shadows and up to Naruto. That's your real name? Why did you give me something else then? I was planning to eventually give you that name as well. The one I gave you is one of my real surnames. Liar. How can you have more than one? Quite easily, my parents had the blood of different families flowing through their veins. I do as well and decided to take up all of the names as their last living legacy. Namor, Anna, Steve, Jim, Winston, and reluctantly Mystique understood. It still didn't mean she wasn't mad at him about it, but she understood. The two other young adults somewhat understood it. That's how it works with the lines of succession in royalty, some of the times. Namor threw in his 2 cents. Exactly, back home I would be considered royalty due to my parents. Why is that? A story for another time perhaps. Winston interjected himself between the conversation. Agreed, right now we need to. Wait 1 minute, I just have one last thing to ask. Steve was a bit miffed at getting interrupted, but let her have the floor. Last thing, no more interruptions from anyone else, am I clear? They all nodded, he gave her the okay. She went directly into Naruto's face and began to sniff him and then did it again. Her eyes narrowed very dangerously. Naruto. Boomies? Why do I smell Irene perfume on you? Did you have sex with her? How are you gonna get out of this one, Namikaze? He thought to himself. The light bulb went off. I plead the fifth. It was funny seeing this as Steve shook his head, that was an American amendment and not something of Britain. Even had they been on American soil, it wouldn't have stopped the blue woman. She tried to strike him, keyword being try, he just kept dancing around her. The others just watched in amusement. Rogers sighed and rubbed his temples. Are you sure this team is going to work? He asked Winston. Positive, but without Mystique. She is too valuable for me to send her with you. Not only will she not want to be out of the country for long periods of time due to her lover, but she is just as good if not a bit better at espionage than Naruto. As you saw, she can change her appearance at will and keep it that way for long periods of time. I need her on my security detail. Steve looked away from the wizened leader and to the two still dancing around the room. A small part of him smiled at them, without knowing it, they had just alleviated a bit of the stress everyone in the room had been feeling since the attack and since Naruto had shown up. Alright invaders, enough horsing around, it's time to get to work. A quick question, how are we going to meet up? Asked Toro. We all live in different places. I think I have a solution for that, I can create something that will alert you to meet up at a moment's notice. It will glow giving you the signal. Answered Naruto, thinking of using his genjutsu for this. That's good, thank you Naruto. Namor and Anna can just swim high speeds to get wherever or whomever activates the seal. Jim and Toro can help me and Bucky by flying us. How would you get anywhere Naruto? Asked Steve. Now that he had thought about it, how had the man even gotten to them out in the middle of the ocean? I can run really fast. Not good enough, I can swim over to you and offer assistance. Stated Anna. Naruto shrugged his shoulders and nodded to her. Well, with that settled, we can finally get to work. Meanwhile. Madripoor. I'm getting closer to his or her location. Muttered Valkyrie as she stepped on a skull and bones of some deceased person. There were bodies all over the area she was in, some of them had already been there, while the others were cut down by her. They impeded her progress, so they had to die. She easily spotted the foreign chakra she found back in Berlin, but this time she found another one, but something she had felt before, something ancient. It mostly lingered around certain bodies, mostly those who were wearing all red and had two blades strapped to their backs. It felt almost demonic in nature. What manner of sorcery is this? Perhaps the All-Father will know. Deciding she would learn no more here, she took the cloth from one of the dead bodies and sealed it away. "Come to me, my Pegasus." A beautiful, majestic creature descended from the sky, its two wings flapping as it galloped in the sky towards its master. She hopped onto the flying horse back. "That way." She pointed at a certain direction she had felt the energy signature go in. She was getting close, so close that she could almost taste it. December 31st, 1941. The new group dubbed the Invaders had gotten their first mission a few hours ago. It had started off well enough, they had run into two members of the JSA. Wonder Woman and the Flash, they had come to them with information on the location of Hitler. When asked how they had found them and how they found Hitler, they said a member on their team, a Dr. Fate, sensed their mystical energies, along with the usage of the spear to locate them. They were a bit hesitant to allow the two JSA members to join them for this, but they needed to follow this lead. Naruto of course went with Wonder Woman as she held his hand as they flew across the ocean, while Jay carried both Bucky and Steve. Jim and Toro could both fly, and the duo from Atlanta swam there. Even though Anna had volunteered to give Naruto mouth-to-mouth should he travel with her. He was glad he didn't get the chance to reply as Hippolyta just grabbed his hand and whisked him away. They were back in Germany. Unfortunately, the location they had been given had changed. It seemed that the tyrant didn't like staying in one place too long. So they had to split up to find the man. They searched the city they were in, they searched the towns they had passed by, and now they were searching a remote forest out in the middle of nowhere. All in all, it had taken them a little more than 5 hours to have even gotten a whiff of the man's location. Finally had they found the little man, they had found him with a spear and some strange markings on the ground. Like he had been performing some ritual. Anna had stepped in front of everyone. "Give it up, Hitler, we have you surrounded. One wrong move and we get rid of you." She pointed at him with a blade in one hand and water swirling in the other. "I think not, Fraulein. Come to me, my super axis." Out of nowhere, a group of 5, 2 men and 3 women appeared. Naruto had no clue who these people were, one of them did catch his attention though. He turned to Steve. "You know them?" Naruto was asking a redundant question. Britain had information on a few of the people here, the human ones. He didn't know who the other one was though. "Yes, we fought them a bit before we actually became an official group and saved the Prime Minister." Morano growled out Namer, staring at the other Atlantean with hate. "Wrong again, Namer, I no longer go by that name pesky Atlantean name, my name is U-Man. Imperious Rex." Namer shot off from his position and speared the other Atlantean off somewhere in the woods to do battle. "Blame on." Both blondes watched as Toro lit a blaze and rushed another villain, it was one of the females. "Toro." Jim watched as his ward flew off to chase the woman who had killed his parents. Turning his flames on as well, he went after them. "That was Asbestos Lady, those 3 have some history," explained Rogers as he got ready to handle the Nazi superhuman in front of him. Naruto watched as the captain and Bucky began battle with Master Man, the Nazi who had demolished the Torch duo. "Such an idiotic man that husband of mine is," spat one of the remaining 2 ladies. She obviously had problems with her so-called husband. This woman was mostly in her underwear, which was all black and it could barely keep her toned body in it. She had a choker around her neck, one of her arms, and around her thigh. Her black combat boots reached up above her knees while a whip-like weapon rested on her side. The only other discerning feature on her was the red sash tied around her other free arm, it had the Nazi symbol on it. This woman was Julia Koenig, or as the information here had called her, Warrior Woman. "I will handle this one." Hippolyta stepped up with sword and shield at the ready. "Oh, you will handle me. You're welcome to come and try." The 2 women sped off against one another, leaving only 3 people in the clearing. "Jay, any reason you haven't gotten Hitler away from that spear yet?" Naruto was wondering what the fastest guy here was doing still standing on his feet. "I can't touch the barrier, remember? I saw what happened the last time when you breathed those fireballs at him. I'm not in a hurry to rush to my death. I'll help with this one. See ya." Naruto had activated his Sharingan and watched a man speed off towards the last woman. She was relatively new, but they knew she was the mastermind behind bringing the group together and offering their services to Germany. No one knew her real name, they all just called her Lady Lotus. "You called for me, handsome." The blonde watched as Jay making the motions of a punch, only to get knocked back on his ass by a telepathic barrier. He was out cold. Such a simple-minded fool. It was easy to see what he was thinking, don't you agree? He bit his tongue on that one, what Flash had done was straightforward, and it had cost him. "Your strange magics may have worked on him, but they will not work on me." Ha! Anna thrusted her blade and blocked a kick with her water. She was immune to some of the effects of whatever the villainess was doing. Her unique physiology as an Atlantean helped her here. Before going off after the woman, she blew Naruto a kiss. He quirked an eyebrow, why were all these women suddenly attracted to him? It made no sense, he shrugged, it wasn't a bad problem to have though. Best that leaves the tyrant to me. He mumbled. He found the man quickly, he had been dumb enough to return to the circle they had found him in. Give it up Hitler, even if I can't grab you because of the spear. I'm just going to keep following you and sooner or later, you're going to slip and then it's goodbye. That is where you're wrong, boy. You're not going to follow me because I am going to summon my champion, a being my people have worshipped since ancient times. I summon the Norse god of thunder and lightning, I summon Thor Odinson. Raising the spear up once more and bringing it down within the ritual circle, a humongous wave of power pulsated out. Nothing happened. A few more seconds passed and Naruto noted with narrowed eyes that thunder began to erupt all throughout the rain clouds that had suddenly gathered. Faster than what many of the others could track, a bolt of lightning struck from the heavens towards the earth. Had Naruto not been using his Sharingan, he would have died the instant the bolt hit the earth. His body had reacted seconds before. Looking up from his position, he saw something that left his mouth agape. It was a man, no, not a man, this was something more. His eyes were telling him that the sheer power rolling off this being was astounding. His physique was perfect, his boots and armor strapped firmly in place, glistening. His red cape and blonde hair flowing majestically as the winds were picking up. And lastly, his metal helmet atop his head, covering his hardened eyes along with a weapon in his hand. A mighty hammer, ready to crush those who stand in his way. You have summoned the mighty Thor. I have your godliness. Thor turned around to see a human with a spear kneeling before him. Why have thou summoned me? That man there, he seeks to kill me. I have done nothing wrong, all I try is to do the best for my people. Yet he and his companion would see to destroy it. You cur. You shall feel thy wrath of Mjolnir. Have at thee. Naruto should have opened his mouth to dispute the claim, but was too shell-shocked. He was certain this god or whatever it was could see reason. He just needed to stay alive long enough to explain it. Unbeknownst to the two warriors who were about to lock in a deadly game of combat, another pair of eyes was locked on them. Valkyrie had finally found the one who had left the trail of strange chakra. It had taken some time after she had left Madripoor, but she had found his home in Britain, and from there she was led to the ocean and then here. She would have liked to question the mortal going to battle with one of her fellow Asgardians, but her being a warrior herself saw it unfit to interfere in this bout. Hopefully, the god of thunder would keep the mortal alive, so she could question him. She did after all find him oh so very interesting. His looks, mask and all, demeanor, weapons, clothes, skills, and his power. She just found it all so fascinating for one such as her. Oh, she hoped he made it out alive. Settling back on the thick tree branch supporting her, she watched with anticipation at the fight that drew all of her attention. End of chapter 3. What if Naruto Speedster Marvel Universe? End here and thanks for watching my video till the end.